Confirm. Confirm you can see my screen, everyone. Kindly confirm my screen can be seen. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so I take that as affirmative. So I'll just go ahead and make the slide full. All right. So I think as of today, we've done 3 topics or 4, 3, if I'm not mistaken. So this will likely be the 4th one. So today we are talking about strategic financial leadership and hotel profitability optimization. This cuts across your hotel, your lounges, whatever business you're running under the hospitality sector. This particular training cuts across those areas. So today we are looking at strategic financial leadership and hotel profitability optimization. So this is looking at how, as a leader, as a departmental head, as a leader, you're very conscious about your profitability, and you understand what it means to be a leader that is financially conscious. What that means is that you're very particular about your expenses. You understand your expenses. You understand your point of sales, your where you're making money, where you're not making money. You also have a good idea of your products that are making money and the ones that are not making money. Now, this is what, and you can interpret your financial statement. This is what this particular training is supposed to do. So I will just jump into the training objective right away. Now, this model aims to transform hospitality managers into financially intelligent leaders, capable of, number 1, interpreting hotel financial statements confidently. Number 2, making data-driven decisions that impact bottom-line performance. 3, managing departmental budget effectively. 4, reducing waste and cost leakages. 5, enhancing revenue through smart operational decisions and strategies. Next one is building credibility with hotel owners through accurate financial communication. And lastly, senior managers will leave this training with their they don't look at the cost center, and at the end of the day, the overhead cost of what it took to actually make that revenue. So at the end of this training, you'll be able to make very informed decisions, being able to manage departmental budget effectively, reduce waste and leakages. So I'll just jump into this training right away because it's very extensive. Wherever we cannot finish, we'll actually stop there and continue on Thursday. Now, financial leadership is a non-negotiable skill for hospitality executives. So most times when I interview people for different roles, be it housekeeping head, kitchen head, I am very particular about interviewing or onboarding people that actually have little experience or little knowledge, about their financial situation. That means if you want to be on top of your game, you need to be financially aware of what happens around your department. You cannot be a good departmental manager, operation manager, whatever manager, if you don't have a good idea, of how your financial situation is as regards your department. Are you making profit? Or if it's a cost center, how is your cost properly managed? Is it managed properly, or you're just spending money without looking at the bottom line or how it's affecting your profitability? Now, so it says here, a hotel can have excellent service, beautiful facilities, and strong branding, but without disciplined financial management, profitability will collapse. I'll take that again so you understand. The hotel can have excellent service. So most times we walk into very beautiful brands. It's not all of them that are financially successful or are doing very well financially. So it says there, the hotel can have excellent service, beautiful facilities like most of our facilities are, and strong branding, but without discipline, financial management, discipline, financial management, profitability will collapse. So that's why most times you see owners get angry with a facility that is selling. Yes, they are making money, but at the end of the day, the money they are using to make that money is very high. For an example, we walk into a facility that makes 100 million, and they're using 70 million to make 100 million naira, that means that the management is not financially disciplined. They don't understand where their overhead is getting too high, and they are not making effort to solve it. So at the end of this training, it will help you to realize that yes, you might have very beautiful branding, but that does not translate to profitability. You might have a very good service, but at the end of the day, if your bottom lines do not tally with that service, the owners will think you're not doing well, because you need to be able to reduce cost and maximize profit. Now, top managers must therefore understand how their department contributes to revenue, number one, how cost affects the hotel gross operating profit, how decisions at operational level impact owners' return. Now, the financial implications of service failures. Those are the things you must be able to understand. How to interpret and act on financial report. Now, so let's look at gross profit first. Now, gross profit is the financial gain a company achieves by deducting the cost directly associated with producing and selling its goods and services. So gross profit is the profit that you derive when you've deducted all the costs. So whatever it costs you to have generated that particular money, once you deduct that cost, whatever profit is remaining is actually gross profit. Net profit is when all these costs have not been deducted. So most times you say we made 90 million. Now 90 million might just be revenue. Now 90 million might be your net profit. But by the time you now start deducting how much it costs to buy drinks, how much it costs to pay salary, whatever profit now remains is actually what is called gross profit. Now, this is where you must understand, that your gross profit is actually what the owners will look at the end of the day. Yes, you might generate 1 billion naira, but how much did it actually cost your facility to generate 1 billion naira? That's what you must be looking at. So that's the bottom line. So you must understand that your gross profit actually, affect, how the owner sees you and affects your business. Because at the end of the day, if the money you made at the end of this month was not enough to even power the next month, you are in trouble. Because once you start going back to the owners and they look at the account and the money is not enough, you now look like you're not doing anything. Now, so I will take that again. How cost affects the hotel's gross operating profit? Because definitely you need to know how much goes into everything that you're generating. Now, so let me finish. How to interpret and act on financial reports, very important. This model will help managers move from merely running operations to thinking like hotel owners. Now, so this is where, most times you see managers that are not as beautiful as you. I will help you. They don't dress as unique as you do, but they do things that the owners keep them in business. They're able to manage costs. They're able to reduce unnecessary costs, and the owners keep them in business. Their facility might not have very beautiful service like your own, but owners prefer to keep them just because they are very disciplined with cost and they understand how to manage their cost. Now, so this is why this training is very important. So let's jump right into full definitions. Understand something. One of the things we try to do in the course of this training is to ensure that we clearly define everything we put out there so you get to understand. So first of all, let's look at what a P&L is. Now, for every manager, be you a departmental manager, operations, account, whatever, this is something you shouldn't lack knowledge of. So P&L is simply your profit and loss statement. Now, this P&L, what we said here is a monthly financial report showing all incomes and expenses of the hotel. It helps managers track financial performance and identify profit gaps. Now, so your P&L is something that as a manager, you should be able to look into the document. And even if you don't have an accountant, you should be able to look at your profit and loss statement, and you should be able to know if either you made money or not, as far as you're keeping accurate records of what comes into your business and what actually goes into your business. And that's why for most business, we advise owners to have a separate revenue account. Then we have advice owners to have, an expenditure account. The reason why that is advised is so that at the end of the month, once you print out your bank statement, you can see how much was expended and how much, actually went into the operations account, how much was, went into the revenue account, and how much was sent out into operations account. So it's very easy to track. So once you get this record, you're able to see how much came in and how much was spent. So profit and loss statement is something that every manager, be you a line manager, be a front office manager, you should be able to read. And if you're not an operations manager or a general manager, you shouldn't lack knowledge of your profit and loss statement. So number one that we talked about is profit and loss, is a statement showing all your incomes and expenses at the end of the month. Now, it helps managers to track financial performance and identify profit gaps. This is where you actually see your outlet that generated more money and outlet that didn't generate more money. And actually, you can track what your kitchen did, what your bar did in terms of expenditure and in terms of income. Now, number two is revenue. Now, revenue is simply money generated from selling rooms, food, drinks, laundry, event, and spa. So for items that are very easy, I will not even delve too much on it. I'll just run through because we have other very serious things to talk about. So when we talk about revenue point, now in every facility, we have revenue point and we have cost centers. So let me just break it down so you understand. Revenue points are those your outlets that actually bring income into the facility, while your cost centers are those outlets that require that you spend money to service them. Now understand this, not every outlet in the hotel that actually requires that money is spent every day to service them. Like the admin department, admin might not need money every day. They might just need money once in a while. So you need to understand your cost centers and also have a clear idea of your revenue centers. This will help you to know areas that you spend more money, and you actually be able to outline the things that you spend more money on. These are the things that help you to budget and have an accurate budget. So let's move, guys. When we talk about departmental expenses, so this says here, these are costs directly tied to running each department. So what this means is that departmental expenses are costs that is tied to running every department. So as a departmental manager, you must know what your department spends on a daily basis. You must know what the department spends on a weekly basis. I normally advise managers, track your budget, revenue, and expenditure on a daily basis. Now, inculcating into weekly basis before it gets to monthly basis. That's why when you ask so many managers, what's your budget for the month or what's your expenditure for the month? Because they waited for the month to finish before they start collecting. It takes them 1 week to come out or bring those reports out. So I always advise managers or departmental heads, you should be able to track your expenses daily, weekly, and you now put that into monthly. Now, so when we talk about departmental expenses, these are direct costs tied to running each department. So what it means is that when you are doing a budget or doing an estimate, you must break it down into different departments and different subheads. For an example, housekeeping. So we take rooms for an example. When we talk about rooms and the expenditure that goes with rooms, we talk about the room amenities. By room amenities here, we are talking about everything that you see in the toilet. Your complimentary bathroom soapers, that's if your brand does complimentary soapers, your tissue, your soap, your shampoo, all those things are expenses that are under your room that you need to charge. So what it means is that for every month or for every day, for each room that is sold, now these things must be attached to your cost of selling the room. So when you say you've made so let's say you are selling a room for 45,000. Now 45,000 is not the actual cost of selling that room. Now you need to be able to break down everything that went into making that room. For an example, if your total amenities is 1,500 now, that's 1,500 for amenities. You now look at the cost of soap for washing the bed sheet. You now cost that. You now look at maybe you give complimentary water in the room. But then if you now do complimentary breakfast, and I hope you understand that complimentary breakfast is charged at cost price, not selling price. When you add all these things together, that actually forms your cost of selling one room. So when you're making your departmental expenses, or when you're planning your departmental expenses, you don't plan it and exclude the soap or tissue or shampoo just because you buy it in bulk. You have to plan it and include those things because, yes, even when you buy it in bulk, it is spent in bit. So these are the things you must understand. So when it comes to rooms, expenses, you talk about amenities, you talk about cleaning supplies, which I've just talked about. So it means for every room, you have to estimate the cost of washing a bedsheet, the cost of washing, a duvet, the cost of removing stains, the cost of buying, what is it called? Detergent for cleaning the room, odor control, air freshener. All those things are tied into your cleaning supplies for actually making a particular room ready. So when you're making up costs, all these things must be factored into your cost. Then we talk of F&B. This is still under departmental expenses. Now, under F&B, we talk about food costs, beverage costs, and linen. Now, there's something you must understand. As a manager, be you a departmental manager or an operation manager or a general manager, there's something you must clearly understand. First of all, you must know what your food cost is. And you see, I clearly tell everybody that you cannot know your food cost if your brand does not have a recipe sheet. So what it means is that you must ensure that you sit down with your chefs, sit down with your F&B manager. If you're an F&B manager, sit down with your chef. you must have a recipe sheet for every product that actually goes out of the kitchen. You itemize menu item. So you itemize each menu items. Once you've itemized each menu items, you now itemize what goes into each of the product. What goes into each of the meals. So if it's food, 2 kg of fish, 2 cm of ghee, you must break it down into very simple, the unit price. Sorry, you must break it down into unit price. Break it down into unit price and quantity. You now sum it up. So if for a plate of rice, and chicken, you must break these things down into very simple and understandable steps. Let me give you guys an example. I'm currently lodging in a facility that we're about to revamp, and some days ago I ordered for rice, a plate of jollof rice that came. I ordered for jollof rice and chicken. When the chicken came, it was a full lap of chicken. And guess how much this food is being sold for? 6,500. Me and you on this training, or for those of you that have clear knowledge of food cost, will know that there's no way that this facility is making profit. But I just took note of it. I'm not talking about it yet because I'm still enjoying it for now. By the time we start revamping, the price will definitely go up, because when you pick one full chicken, I don't know how much is sold now, but I know it's between 9,000, 10,000. When you pick one full chicken and divide it by 4, let's say if your hotel is doing 4 portions per chicken. Now, what that means is that a portion of chicken, let's say the price is 10,000. A portion of chicken goes for, let's say, 2.5. That's for chicken. Rice, a cup of rice now is about 200. So you now add rice, you add the ingredient, you add the salad, you add, cost of utility, then you now mark it up. You now realize that at the end of the day, the facility might not make up to 40% or 50% of whatever they've invested into the food. So what this clearly tells you is that as a manager, you must know your food cost. And one of the best ways, the best and most simple ways of knowing your food cost is that you must have a recipe sheet. Now, this is where most managers don't put in the effort, because yes, it's cumbersome. If you develop all these things, let's say you know how to develop a spreadsheet. An Excel sheet. If you develop an Excel sheet and have all your items, all your menu items on that Excel sheet, it will be very easy for you. So you just impute the names of the item and the prices. The Excel sheet will call up the numbers for you. So it's easy. But so if you have this for one brand, when you move to another brand, you don't need to develop these things again and again. It's just to open your Excel sheet, and you can just do 1 or 2 changes depending on the pricing and the quantity of the items that this other brand is doing, and it makes it very easy for you. So now, outstanding managers in the hospitality sector, to their managers that can call up their records, and they have clear facts and figures because they've been able to sit down and itemize these things and put their costs together. So we're talking about departmental expenses. In F&B, one of the things you must have clear knowledge is how much it actually costs for you to provide one meal for a guest. How much does it cost for you to do complimentary breakfast? Your buffet that actually leaves, your buffet that your guests eat in the morning. Let's say buffet is for 20. Can you cost how much each of those buffet is, and break it down into simple and traceable, outcomes. So what that means, or what I'm trying to say in essence is, most times kitchen will tell you that today buffet was done for 30 people, and different quantities of things were used, and there's no match. So you cannot really trace it to say, okay, for 10 guests, we are using one crate of egg. Once you're not able to develop your recipes, F&B people, you'll be running at a very serious loss. Kitchen people will use you to do Sahara because they know that you cannot clearly itemize this thing because you don't have a recipe sheet. Now, so we now talk about beverage cost. Now, it's very important that every manager understands if you are running a facility, you must know what your beverage cost is. Now, beverage cost is far easier to determine than food cost. Now, beverage cost is just single, so you don't need to add ingredients. The only beverage cost that requires you adding 1 or 2 together is actually cocktails, and that's where mixologists make a mess of all. So let me talk about mixologists, because definitely you need to be sure that you can track your what is it called? You can track your cost for each cocktail. Now, you see, mixologists are very smart these days that they don't give you volumes of whatever recipe goes into a particular item. But it's very simple. When you're onboarding any mixologist into your brand, it is very important that you ask to see the recipe for each cocktail. Now, what that will help you do is to also determine quantity of whatever goes into a particular cocktail. Let me use a Long Island for an example. And we know Long Island uses about 5 different types of drinks. We have the gin, we have gin, we have vodka, we have a few other drinks there. So when they are preparing this Long Island, for an example, you have to know, let's say for gin, how many thoughts? And for each thought, for each thought, we have a 2 cm thought, we have a 3 cm thought. So if they tell you they are dropping a thought of, let's say, vodka into the Long Island, you must know if it's a 2 cm thought or if it's a 3 cm thought. Now, that will help you to decide, okay, if you give them 1 bottle of Gordon's, and this 1 bottle of Gordon's is to be used to produce, let's say, different types of cocktail. Now, what is the cm that is used? That way, you'll be able to use that to divide. If the Gordon's, let's say it's 70 cl, if you divide 70 cl by, let's say, 2 cm thought or 2 cl thought, you know the quantity of thought that goes into the drink. So a mixologist does not take it for granted, because most times mixologists are finished selling, 1 full bottle of Gordon, 1 full bottle of tequila, 1 full bottle of, let's say, triple sec. So there's a triple sec in Long Island, and you cannot track how many glasses of cocktails was produced from it, because nobody knows. You don't know. At that point, you discover that these people are making money, while your food cost is very high, while your beverage cost is high, because nobody is able to track how many thoughts actually went into a glass of cocktail. So what I'm saying in essence is, when you are setting up a facility or you're currently running a facility, you must not let mixologists run you street. Let me use that word. So you must know every thought. What's the quantity, what's the size of the thought, and how many quantity goes into a particular drink. So you can track it and know how many thoughts has gone, into producing what and what. If not, you're running a business and people will make you money and not making money. Still under food and beverage. Another cost that you must, also plan for is linens. By linens, we mean your napkins, your table covers. These are things that you budget for. There must be a turnaround time for these items to be changed. So that means in your costing, you must plan for these things to be changed at regular interval. Let's say 6 months or 3 months, depending on usage. Now, stewarding here, we are simply talking about people that clean rooms, people that handle maybe kitchen, back-end activities in the kitchen. Now, you must know that everyday detergent are being used. So detergent also form part of the cost. When you're doing any budgeting, you must plan for this, understanding that every department, not every, but most departments in the facility actually have need for usage of detergent. And there's a way to track this thing. Now, you see, most of the mistakes facilities do, most facilities will tell you, why should we measure detergent? If you buy, let's say, a pack of detergent, you can share that detergent into small nylons and measure it in scale. Maybe it can be 1 cm or 2 cm, and keep them so it becomes a requisitable item. So when somebody picks a quantity of detergent, you should be able to do this. So you can track usage. If not, people will carry your detergent to go and wash car. Somebody will carry your detergent to go and wash soap. As small and minute as that thing is, when you put it together, the company might end up wasting an additional 30,000 for detergent or 20,000. When you now put all these small costs, together from every department, at the end of the day, you might realize the company has spent a million plus in things that would have been avoided. Now, so we talk about maintenance, still under departmental expenses. When we talk about maintenance, this is what you must learn in your facility. You see, most times when facilities buy things, when you do preventive maintenance, it reduces your cost. By preventive maintenance, what you do is that, like we said the other time, you ensure that you check your things ahead, service your. So, for an example, let's say for ACs, if you run a brand that ACs are used every time, now you should plan for servicing of your AC before it gets bad. So what that means is you must get things ready for actually, servicing the ACs. If you run a facility that, services generator after like 2 hours, 250 hours of working, you must ensure that you have the serviceable items or the items that will be used for servicing. That if you buy them in bulk, if you budget them and buy them in bulk, it reduces your expense. For an example, if you buy oil, if you buy oil, buy filters, and you have them in the store. Now, understand that when you buy things in bulk, the tendency is that the price drops a little bit. Most times, if you buy in a carton, it drops a little bit. Now, it is your power to convince your owner to see the need to do these things in bulk that would help reduce cost. So when we talk about maintenance, we're talking about every department that actually has equipment and things that are serviceable or needs to be serviced. You need to plan for these things and ensure that it's in your budget. One of the mistakes people do is that, or managers do, is that most times you plan just because something has not spoiled. You plan your budget without including maintenance. So eventually, when those things happen, just because it was not budgeted, the owner sees it as a burden. So anytime you're preparing your budget, always have a stop head for maintenance. This could be servicing, this could be quick repairs. Now, so what this helps you do, it puts you 4 or 5 steps ahead so that when these things get bad, it has already been budgeted for. So it's easy to pull out the funds and actually get these things fixed. Now, let's talk about front office expenses. Front office expenses, we're talking about stationaries, guest supplies. Now, for facilities that print a lot of documents, maybe guests have to sign the bills, that front office always have printer. So you need to make sure that stationaries are available and know when it's finished, you go and buy. So if I run a system, I will ensure that I have a standby ink. So when this one finishes, replace it with that one and the request is made. That is part of front office expenses. To buy paper, all this needs to be bought and kept, and so it needs to be included in your budget. Not when it finishes, they're not writing to the owner that we need to buy paper. These things are things that are under your departmental expenses, so it forms part of your budget. Everything I just talked about here, actually forms part of your budget. Then there's something we call undistributed expenses. Please pay attention to all this because it's very important. So that when you're talking to your owners, henceforth, you talk from the point of experience. Now, undistributed expenses are shared hotel expenses that are not attributed to a single department. For example, internet. Internet cannot be attributed to a particular department. It's not possible because it's generally used. So that are not distributed expenses, because when you're doing your budget, you cannot say internet is to F&B or internet is to the front desk. It's a utility that everybody uses, both the guests and in-house people. So internet falls under, undistributed expenses. Now we have admin and general. Admin and general, printing of documents, medicals, HMO, these are undistributed expenses. Anything that falls under admin is an undistributed expenses because it's for the general purpose of the hotel. Then we have human resources that has to do with recruitment, firing, documentation. This is an undistributed expenses. Then we have marketing. Marketing cannot be attributed to, especially if you run a facility that doesn't have a marketing department. You cannot now say that, okay, this particular subhead or this particular expense is distributed to marketing. Now, energy and these are all undistributed expenses. And like I've explained, undistributed expenses are expenses that don't have. I said I wasn't going to admit anybody that comes late, so I think I'll stay with that. So please drop on the group. Like I said, anybody that comes late to the class would not be admitted because it's very distracting that you're taking a class and you're actually going to admit people. And after today's class, for people that didn't take permission, I've seen 11 people here. That means we are losing 11 people on the group. And that's a lesson to people. Okay, so let's continue. Sorry, I had to just pause because that just rang into my ear. Now, so let's talk about something that is very important that you must understand as departmental heads, operational managers, and managers of facilities. You see, when you cannot talk about leadership, financial leadership, without talking about KPIs. Now, without talking about budget and without talking about forecast. So in this particular slide, we are going to explain, KPIs, budget, and forecast. Now, for you to be an outstanding manager, mental head, or a general manager, you must be able to work with KPIs. That's key performance index. Now, because if you don't have KPIs, how do you measure people's performance? How do you rate people? How do you track what people have been able to do if you don't have key performance indicators? Key performance indicators actually track, people's performances and shows if they're actually making progress or not making progress, because this is where you're able to outline what the company wants to see, milestones, so everybody gets to know that, okay, this is achievable, this is not achievable, this is where we've gotten to. So now, this is what we call numerical tools used to measure performance. So key performance indicator is one tool that you actually need as a manager. And you see, one of the things that the internet has come to do is that for every department, you can create your own key performance indicator. So what it means is that as a general manager of a facility, you can create key performance indicators for your front office. And these things most times are simple things. You can say, okay, at the end of every week, I want to see 10 good reviews. That's a key performance indicator. For F&B, you can say, at the end of every week, I want to see that we sold 20 cocktails. That's a key performance indicator. That's actually to show you if the F&B people are actually pushing to observe cocktails or not. So what it means is that for every department, you can actually set key performance indicators, and it will help you to track performance and see if your facility is actually doing well or they are not doing well. Now, so we have, these are different numerical tools used to measure performance. We are definitely going to, explain all of them. We have the ADR, we have the RAVPAR, we have the occupancy, we have the GOPAR, when we have the flow through. I'll definitely explain all these key points. I'll explain all of them and tell you what the meanings are, through this training. So you get to understand what it means, because most times when you're talking to your owners or talking to other professionals, you need to be able to make use of most of these terms just to show that you're actually grounded in the hospitality sector. So we have the ADR, we have the RAVPAR, we have the occupancy. Occupancy is very, please, can somebody drop a message on the group? I'm having, this sound is actually very distracting. So please, somebody should drop a message on the group that there was an instruction, please, that nobody should try joining. Please, so that we can continue. Okay. All right, so let me continue, guys. I will ignore that. So now in the next slide, we'll explain all these abbreviations, so you get to understand. But I think I might just take a few before I actually jump past this particular slide. I'm trying to. Okay, sorry guys. I just had a message from one of the people that's trying to join. Okay, so I'll just jump there, and in the next slide, I'll take time to explain everything that's written there. Then we have the budget. Now, budget is financial plan for a specific period, showing expected revenue and allowable expenditure. Now, let me tell you what you guys don't understand. Now, you see, if your budget does not show expected revenue and is only showing expenses, that means it's not a budget. Now, most of us make these mistakes a whole lot. Now, you propose a budget, you send a budget to an owner, and the only thing that your budget tells, or the only thing that your budget shows, is actually expenses. Now, what happens to also, because the easiest and the best way to actually show that you trust your budget and you know what you're talking about is when you can tell your owner that, yes, we want to some amount, and this is the expected revenue from this particular amount. Now, I'm not saying that there's no shortfalls in budget. What that means is that, most times you have an estimation of, expected revenue, but you don't meet it. Then you go back to see, okay, if I didn't meet this particular revenue, did I spend this particular money that I had estimated we would spend to generate this revenue? Now, if for whatever reason, you had a budget estimate and you had a revenue estimate and you spend that particular budget, estimate, and you do not generate that revenue, it means you should have, a lot of stock left that will complement for that shortfall. And you should be able to look back and say, okay, why didn't you make this particular money? And look at areas that you had a shortfall. Now, so your budget is a plan, is a financial plan for a specific period, showing expected revenue and allowable expenses. So it means that your budget must show expected revenue and allowable expenses within a period of time. It might be a 1 month budget broken down into weekly budget. And that's what I advise every manager. Be a departmental manager, a front office, whatever department you find yourself, you must have a monthly budget broken down into simple weekly budget for easy tracing and easy reconciliation. So we talk about forecast. Now, forecast is a rolling financial projection based on real-time performance and trends. For an example, December. In December, we actually know that patronage actually goes up. And for some brands, for people that work in branded brand, for most facilities, the price of things actually shoot up in December because of demand. Because yes, you're not going to have this much demand maybe in January. So most brands actually use this period to maybe shoot the price of the items a bit, so that at least they will use this period to maximize revenue and profit. And maybe in January, when patronage drops, the company can still survive and pull through. Now, so focus is when you're able to look at the period and say, okay, because we are going to have social events, the company should make more, maybe 20% more. So most times it's better to use percentage. So if the company made, let's say in November, the company made 30 million or 40 million. Now with the expected, event in December, the company should be able to make maybe 10% more than it made in November. And you look at your fact and indices. Do you have events that can drive those numbers? Now this is what forecast is all about. I hope I'm making point and you guys are, understanding. Sorry, I'll go back. I just want to. So please let me know if you all are getting along, because I don't want to be talking to myself. Now I want to finish all these things. Then we'll a clear definition for all those abbreviations. So don't be scared. We've clearly broken down abbreviations into simple, understandable abbreviations, so you get to understand. Now, so let's talk about flow through. Now, flow through here is simply the proportion of additional revenue that converts into profit. For an example, let's say in the month of November, you had budgeted, you had estimated that the company was going to make 35 million. And in the course of, doing business, your company now made additional sales. So additional sales, later additional, so I picked the additional 1 million that, you had not budgeted or projected that it was going to happen. And out of that 1 million, 600,000 is actually your profit. That means you use 400,000 to make that 1 million. Now, what has happened is that, you see, that particular revenue that has come in now is now a flow through. Now, it's flow through because it was not estimated, or you did not anticipate that you're going to make that money, but it just came and you can make at least a 60% profit from that particular business. That's what a flow through is. So we talk about cost control. Now, for any manager, if you don't understand cost control here, I'm not talking about cost control as a person. I'm talking about cost control as a team or as a head of a team. If every manager understands how to cut cost, or control cost, the company makes more money, because people don't just bring up things to you and you jump and sign them and approve them, because you're very conscious about, controlling cost and ensuring that, guests still get quality service, but at a reduced expenditure. For an example, just because you want to cut cost for the company does not mean that you go and reduce the quantity of meat in the soup and say we are cutting cost, but you still maintain the price. There should be a justification. There should be a match for it. So you don't reduce the quality of service, just because you want to cut cost. Cost control is when you can reduce expenditure and still maintain the quality of service. See, when you reduce quality of service and because you're cutting costs, let's say you reduce, I just use meat for an example. Now, or let's say, let me use cocktail also, so you guys get a better grip. Instead of buying Angostura bitter, you decide to buy a Loma bitter because you want to cut cost. What you're doing is that you reduce quality in the name of cutting cost. That is not cutting cost anymore. I don't know if you guys are understanding, but I'll just run through and wait for your question. Now, so cost control here is a strategic management of expenses to ensure efficiency without reducing service quality. That's all I've been explaining. How are you able to strategically, manage expenses and ensure efficiency without somebody walking in and asking you, why did my Gary reduce? Or in your rooms are not smelling nice again. Just because you're saying that, the cost of buying one particular order control is too expensive, and you decide to buy the one of 200 naira, and guest walks into your room, and rooms are smelling damp. What you've done is not cost control. What you've done is that you've reduced service quality. You've not reduced cost. You've not cut cost. That's not cost control. So if you are, as a manager, you're reducing the quality of things just because you want to cut down on price, it simply means you're not cutting cost. You're not controlling cost. I hope I'm making sense. And I can tell you that for people that misses today's class, it's a big shame. But like I said, we'll continue that at the end of the day. Even if you have 10 people left in the course of this training, it will really be a nice journey, and you guys will have learned a lot. Now, so these are full explanation of all areas. These are all extensive explanation, understanding the structure of your hotel P&L. So this is where you understand the full structure of your hotel P&L. So when we talk about hotel profit and loss, it is divided into different sections. Section A is revenue section. Now, under revenue, we have rooms revenue, rooms nights sold, upselling, corporate and groups booking. These are all the things that forms, P&L. And like I said, P&L has the revenue section. And these are all the things that make up the revenue section. Revenue sessions are more like your point of sales, the areas in your facility that helps you to make money. So this is what we call revenue section. So we have rooms revenue, rooms night sold, upselling, now corporate and group bookings, OTA revenue, the online travel agent, food and beverage revenue, restaurant, bars, banquet room, service. Now we also have other revenues that still fall under revenues, where we have the laundry, the pool and spa, the business center, transportation. That's if your company has like airport taxi or whatever that helps to drop people. Now, these are all part of revenues that goes into your P&L. Now, managers must evaluate each revenue line for. So these are the things you must learn. You must be able to, evaluate your revenue line and understand that, you see, there are times one of your revenue is doing well and not doing well. So you need to know what items or which of your revenue outlets is performing very well and why is it performing very well. What should you do to enhance it? Which of your revenue point is not performing well, and what are you doing to ensure that you turn around the situation? So it means you must sit down and analyze each revenue point, and you must treat each revenue point as independent as possible. So meaning that each revenue point must be treated like a different child. So understanding that the model you use for bar might not work for a restaurant. Understanding that the model you use for a restaurant might not work for your rooms. So what that means is that you must sit down and evaluate each revenue point. For an example, laundry. Most facilities neglect paying attention to laundry, but forgetting that laundry can generate enough money to buy their own, supplies and amenities, and also buy the supplies and amenities that, can even help housekeeping, kitchen, and other small areas. For an example, a good and well-managed laundry should be able to buy their cleaning supplies, their washing supplies that the kitchen can use, even the housekeeping can use, and other areas can also make use of. But this can only happen when you're able to evaluate each line. So you evaluate each of these, revenue points for what is trending, the ones that is doing well, what is trending up, or what is trending down. That's what we meant here. So divide all your revenue points. You have a pool, you have a restaurant, you have a bar, you have a snooker, you have a game center. Each day, check their performance. Check what they are doing in numbers. Go around and see what is done and what you can do to improve the numbers. The one that is doing well, see how to improve it. The one that is not doing well, check your strategy and see, is there something I can introduce to help change the trend in this particular outlet? So this is what you must do. And the only way you can do this is if you're able to check your numbers and performance every day. So as a departmental manager, as an operations manager, as a manager of a facility, you must be able to track your performance on a daily basis. So every day you call up your performance, you check your revenue for the bar, for the restaurant, for the this. In a week, you'll be able to trace and see the ones that are doing well and the ones that are not doing well. Then we talk about seasonality. Now, this Ember period is actually a very good season for a lot of things, for parties, for a lot of things. So you must be able to fix certain things in certain period, knowing to whether it's an opportunity to cash out that period. In general, we all know that general business goes good. Now, so it is when you understand seasonality when you're running a facility and understand that in seasons, there are seasons the same thing would pro- product needs either a markup or reduction in price. So when we talk about market segmentation, you are as a manager. Somebody still trying to join? Sorry guys. Let me make Victor. I don't know if I've made you a co-host so that you can manage most of these people that are trying to join. Okay, guys. So let me continue, guys. All right. So, like I said, I was talking about market segmentation. So, market segmentation is, a process where you divide your broad market, into smaller and very distinct subgroups for consumers. So, for an example, even when you have a swimming pool, you have to understand there are different markets for the swimming pool. Do you have plans for children? Do you have plans for pool parties? Do you have plans for different things? That's one market, but you're able to, subdivide that market into different days or into different activities to, meet the needs of every consumer. For an example, if you dedicate, let's say, a day to your pool and say, okay, let's say maybe Wednesdays, like I did for a brand, and say Wednesdays are free swimming for ladies, but on terms and conditions. You've penetrated a particular market. So your terms and conditions can be that you must buy something worth 5,000 to be able to enjoy free swimming. Now, what you've done is that you've broken that swimming pool market into different, parts. So, you have a market for ladies that like free things, and those ladies will bring more ladies that will start bringing guys. Now, you have identified that as a pool, you can break it down into smaller sub-market or for different consumers, but one product, targeted as different, consumers. That's what market segmentation is. You pick your bar. What are the different things? What are the different activities? Understanding that, there are events that you have that will bring the Gen Zs, and there are events that you have that will bring the ballers. So you don't just, there are brands that say, this is my market, and they stay within that market. Now, what that means is that if that market, that particular set of people do not come to the brand for a particular while, the brand is practically not the business. Now, one of the things you must learn to do as a manager is that you must understand, market segmentation. It's very important. Then we talk about rate change. Now, you must know when to switch your rate, either upward or downward. Now, this season is actually a season where rates actually go up. Now, for example, there are seasons that your business will not have as much patronage as it's currently having in seasonal period. What do you do? What do you introduce in that period? Do you introduce promotions? Do you introduce things? Now, so let me give you guys an example. There's a particular lounge I go for karaoke in Lagos, and they will tell you for their karaoke days, 20,000, and you can drink unlimited cocktail. I think it's 20,000 or 30,000. Now tell me, how many cocktails can you even drink? But because most times we like to hear things like that, somebody will go and sit down, pay 20,000. I've done it twice, and with a group of people, or 25,000. The highest they can drink is 3 glasses. Because, man, these things are, and how much does it take to produce these 3 glasses of cocktail? It might just be 3,000. But they've been able to, use that to capture people. So you must understand that there are times as a business, as a manager of a facility, as a departmental head, that you must look at the season and use it to determine rate change and ask yourself, should we switch down the rate, or should we use a promo to say, okay, for this particular period, we are doing a 10,000 off rate, but you still enjoy breakfast because of seasons. So you must understand rate change. Then, most importantly, you must understand demand patterns. Now, demand patterns in the sense that, you see, if you're in your brand, let's say you are selling tequila. There's a very cheap tequila now. I remember the name, and you see that tequila sells very well. Now, most times the mistakes we make as managers is that most times is when you see a particular trend, that's when you feel it's time to shoot up the price. Now, you must understand that most times a change in price in a particular time might actually alter, your sales volume. So, for an example, you have a tequila that is selling very well and it's low, the price is low to buy. Let's say you buy the tequila at, let's say, maybe 6,000 or 5,000, and you sell it for, let's say, 25,000, and it sells very high. You see, most times it's not advisable to shoot the price of those type of things, because that can be your highest selling items, and you know that every day this in sales high. So the demand pattern is that you can even encourage people to buy more, just because you know that the cost of getting that particular thing is actually low. So you use that as your best selling product. So you know that each day you are sure that 5 people will drink this tequila. But most times you notice that some managers will go and shoot up the price and the demand for that thing practically drops. At the end of the day, you're losing money. So you must understand demand patterns. You must understand that there are things you can shoot up the price and people will still buy it. And there are things you can shoot up the price and people will not buy it again. So one of the things you must learn to understand is demand pattern. Okay, I will admit one person, because the one actually took an excuse. Okay. All right. So let's continue, guys. Now, so let's go back to departmental expenses. So I wrote here, these vary depending on business volume. So understand that, you know, your budget for January might not be the same budget for February. So when we talk about departmental budget, it says here, these vary depending on business volume. Examples, housekeeping chemicals, the usage. If your hotel is an old hotel, now understand that the usage of chemical might definitely increase. That, or if the hotel is a new hotel that they just finished building, now the level of chemical used for the first 1 month might actually be very high. But after that period, yes, it might actually decline because yes, the debt have been removed. Now, uniform replacement. After a while, so you must understand that after a while, the need for uniform replacement might increase. So if you're running a facility that has been operating for 1 year, obviously there will be clear demand, high demand for uniform change because yes, there's wear and tear. So there will be demand for the uniform change from different departments. Now, understand also that food cost might also vary. So let me explain this. You know, market value or market factors, you know, affect food cost. And that's why when setting food cost for a manager, for a departmental head, you must, when you factor in everything, understand the fact that, you know, market factors can affect your food cost. So you must ensure that your price is such that even in 6 months or 4 months, for an example, or 3 months, even if there's, let's say, a 20% increment in market sales or market value of these things, it doesn't affect your food cost. So what I tell managers or what I tell people that do food costing is that when you're done with your food costs, you're done with, let's say your cost of producing a jollof rice is 1,800, for an example. Now, what I always advise managers to do is because of market factors. So market factors can be the cost of chicken, cost of whatever has increased. Now, add maybe between 500 to 700 to 1,000 for food for market factors. What that means is that you have understood that in 1 month there might be price changes. You can't be changing your price every day. So it's very annoying when people walk into your brand today and pepper soup is 4,000. They will come tomorrow, pepper soup is 6,500. They come to me 7,000. It shows that the people that fix the price do not understand the market fluctuation and, you know, factors. The same thing with beverage cost. Now, one of the things you must understand as managers is that yes, the cost of beverage goes up in let's say the festive period. Now, if you are a manager that, you know, is very proactive, you would have advised the owners to would have stocked up enough beverage, especially the bottled drinks, let's say the whiskeys and the brandies and whatever, that their expiry date is very far. Most whiskeys and brandies don't even have expiry date. Now, if you have advised the owners and these things will stock up in good numbers on time, you might not even have to increase beverage costs for the whole Yuletide period because you had already planned ahead. But if for whatever reason you did not, you know, have all these things well planned out for stocking, what you can do is that prior to the festive period, let's say in November, you can redo your menu. You can up your prices by, let's say, 10% or 5%, just to be able to accommodate all the market factors that might arise. So you don't have to be changing your prices every day and look like you're an unserious person. Now, another expense is that facilities must factor in. Now, all these things that is to help you as a manager, as a departmental, to be able to plan your budget, and you can define them and talk about them in front of your owners, is breakages and damages. You see, one of the things you must teach your staff is that, you know, they must learn to record breakages and damages. But if you don't even know how to do these things, if you threaten them that every breakages and damages must be charged for, they will not document it. Now, what documenting breakages and damages helps you do is it helps you to track every item in the system that is broken, either by mistake or by force or by accident and whatever. So you don't wake up one day and you don't have enough plates. You don't wake up one day, you don't have enough glasses. So that's why when you walk into some brands, if they have volume, let's say they have 30 people that walk into their bar and they are drinking brandies, they don't have enough brandy glasses. Now, it is not because they did not buy enough brandy glasses. It is simply because there's no breakages, there's no plan for breakages and damages. So you need to, as a manager, have a clear-cut plan and document for breakages and damages, and teach your staff to be able to, document breakages and damages. And the only way they will do it is when they are confident enough to know that, yes, breakages and damages will not be charged to them. And that is where your service charge comes into play. Now, one of the things you must understand as managers is that part of your service charge, if your brand actually charges customer service charge, is supposed to cater for breakages and damages. So even if your owners do not pay to the staff, there should be a time where these monies are set aside to handle breakages and damages. So please, in your expenses, plan in such a way that you know that at every interval, let's say every 3 months, you have to look at, so in fact, glasses, plates, and whatever. When you do your inventory, if you do your inventory monthly, you'll be able to check the numbers that are left. Now, breakages and damage form will help you guide, will help you show you that they might not be able to record everything, no doubt, but it will help you to a large extent to know the level at which these things are being broken and damaged, so that you can plan for them in your budget and have adequate, time to replace them without running helter-skelter when, there's need for them because you did not plan or you did not put them as part of your expenses. Now, guest supplies. Guest supplies is practically the things that guests use, the amenities, their complementary items. Now, you see, you must have what we call a reorder level for these things, because most times, what influences the expense, or what influences the purchase of these things, is actually the numbers of guests that check in and check out of the facility. Now, once you have a good reorder level, what it will help you do is that, yes, the expenses for January for guest supplies might vary from February. Now, it might vary because of the level of occupancy. So let's say in January, you had a total check-in of 2,000. What that means is that you would have had 2,000, guest amenities or supplies that have been used. Maybe in the previous month, you had 1,000. So what that means is that because of higher demand, there's already a deplete in the numbers of guest supplies you have. So what it means that your expenses for guest supply for month A might not be the same with your guest supply, expenses for month B. But you must be able to track your guest, supplies, through daily usage. That how many was requisited today. That's how you track them, to be able to defend your expenses when you make them to your owner. So most times you go to your owners and you're requisiting for guest supplies, but you don't have an accurate database of how many of the guest supplies was used within the month because you're not tracking them. It makes you look incompetent. So managers must use per level. Managers must use stock control. Managers must use cost, recipe costing. Managers must issue requisition. Managers must use consumption analysis. Now, per level is simply periodic automatic replenishment. So now what this means is that you've set a reorder level to say, okay, once this thing gets to, let's say for guest amenities, you've told yourself that once this thing gets to 100, I'm replenishing, irrespective of if I have guests in the house or don't have guests in the house. So you must learn to use per levels to replenish product. Stock control. Yes, stock control is when you monitor your stock on daily basis to see that once it gets to red is still your reorder level. You can replenish without having to wait until it completely finishes. Recipe costing, which I talked about. Now, issue requisition form. I pity for brands that don't have proper requisition processes. So you must have, a good requisition process that tracks, your incoming and going out, and every requisition, every item that you have in your store must have a reorder level. I advise every manager, one of the things you must learn to do, even if the owners do not encourage it or the owners are not supporting it, because most time before they release money, your reorder level is finished. You must have a reorder level for every product in your space, and you must communicate it to them that, sir, ma, these are the reorder levels for fish, for this, for that. It keeps you 2 steps ahead. Then you must also analyze consumption level. So what I tell every manager is, on weekly basis, develop a consumption level for all your products. Now, it will help you to track. So on Monday, you check how many bottles of Heineken was sold, how many bottles of whiskey was sold. Now, once you do this, in a week, you'll be able to see which of your product did best. So you are tracking for consumption level. In a month, be able to tell how many of your product did very well and the ones that don't do well. Now, so what you can do, you can reduce the amount of money you spend on the things that don't sell well and increase, the quantity of the ones that sell more without even increasing your budget. I hope I'm making sense. Number 3, as part of the things we have talked about, which I analyzed earlier, on the distributed expenses. Now, understand that this training today is supposed to make you become a financially more, strategic manager. So you understand all the, expense level, expense terms, point of sales, expense point. This is what this training is supposed to help you do today. Now, so we talked about undistributed expenses. I will just touch base and move. Now, these are heavy cost centers. Now, cost centers are actually those areas that take money out of the brand but don't give the brand money. For an example, HR does not generate money. HR doesn't generate money. Electricity and diesel, those ones don't generate money. These are the things that help, aids operation, because you need electricity, you need diesel, you need Wi-Fi, IT charges, printing and marketing materials, HR welfare, accounting charges. Now, managers should interpret how these expenses directly affect departmental profit. Now, the truth is that because these things do not generate money does not mean that it does not affect profit. Now, it doesn't generate money, but you need it to generate money. So that is, you need electricity to generate money. You need diesel to generate money. But you need to be able to manage these things to ensure that these things, the burden of it is not overbearing on your revenue at the end of the day. For an example, you must check to see how much do you spend on Wi-Fi and what's the bandwidth, what's the usage like. So if you have to reduce it, because most times companies pay for Wi-Fi and staffs come downloading almost everything. So if you're doing Wi-Fi, you must check to be sure that, yes, the bandwidth you're paying for is something that at least your guests can use and 3 departments can use without you spending too much for your staff to just come and frolic on your internet. Printing and marketing materials. You must look at how much your company spends on printing. If you can reduce the money from printing into online marketing material, you would have helped your company to cut costs. For an example, who produces 60,000, let's say 5,000 flyers for 100K or 120K when you can carry 20,000 or 30,000 and put into sponsored posts that will give you over 100,000 views? So you must look at all these expenses, the ones that you can reduce and rechannel into something else that will give you even better result, because these areas are undistributed expenses. These are heavy cost centers that are not bringing in direct profit. HR welfare. Now, HR welfare, these include, overtime, staff food, and all whatnot. Now, these are areas you must sit down and look at it properly and say, now, for me to produce staff food for 20 people in the kitchen, or for me to add money to them, which one is more cost effective? Because understand something, for most brands, they will analyze the fact that these staffs, to produce a staff meal, they will have to use the gas in the kitchen, and there's no way some of the things that is bought for guests will still not come into the staff food. So at the end of the day, the money budgeted for staff food is actually more, because there are some things that are not accounted for. Now, so these are all the areas you must look at. Then accounting charges. This one is for accounting people. How much do you pay for all the charges of all the transactions that the company does? Because these are actually charges or expenses that do not bring in direct profit into the company. Now, so let's look at all the areas. Full explanation of all areas. Okay, this continuation. Gross operating profit / net operating profit. Now, I talked about this when we started earlier. So I emphasize again for those of you that are just so for those of you that are just joining, I will just explain. I will just throw more light into this, so you get to catch up. Now, so when we talk about gross operating profit, now this is profit gotten after all expenses, has been deducted. After all expenses have been deducted, the profit that you get is actually gross profit. So for an example, so let me break it down. Let me break it down so you understand. When let's say your hotel makes 40 million, and when you put your salaries, cost of diesel, everything together, is 29 million. Now, when you deduct 29 million from 40 million, 11 million is left. That 11 million is actually your gross operating profit. That's your profit. That's your gross profit at the end of the day. Now, net operating profit is actually, the other way around. So when we talk about net, it means you've not deducted all these expenses yet. You've not deducted your cost of production. You've not deducted, salary. That's actually what we are talking about here. Now, so you must, when you're talking to your owners, you must make them understand that these things, the difference between a gross operating profit and a net operating income. So for an example, when you want to go to your owners, you must be able to differentiate. When you're telling them the profit that the company is making, you should be able to differentiate what the profit is. Is it a net profit or is it a gross profit? Because most times you go and tell your owners, at the end of the month, I will make 60 million now. 60 million is income. That's net operating income or net operating profit, as the case may be. Now, when you now start deducting every other thing, your cost of operation, salary, blah, 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 in fact, net profit is when you've deducted all your total operating expenses. So when you deduct all operational expenses, what is left is actually your gross profit. But if it's only maybe 1 or 2 management fees, ownership expenses, bank loan, and taxes that is deducted, it means you're still under net operating income or net operating profit. So that means you've not deducted everything that is actually that is needed to be deducted. So understand this: gross operating profit is when every operating cost has been deducted, while net operating income is when you've not deducted. That's the profit that you've not deducted all the operational expenses that has been done for that particular month. So you must understand this. Now, how do you calculate gross operating profit? Now, it's very simple. It's very straightforward. And like I just shown here, for you to get your gross operating profit, you deduct your total operating expenses from your total revenue. What it means is every money you used to generate that particular money. So let's assume you made 10 million in a month and 6.5 million is every money you spend. When you deduct 6.5 million from 10 million, whatever is left is your gross profit, because you deducted all the operating expenses for that particular month. Now, this is a key indicator of hotel's financial health. So at the end of the month, this will actually show you if you actually made money or not. Because most times, what we actually call money is the income, is just the net operating income. So you say, this month you made 100 million. But by the time every money is deducted, if the owner is smart, he will know that the hotel did not actually make any money. Now, so for net operating expenses or income, net operating income, we say here that this is the true financial performance indicator for investors. Now, so this is where investors know if the hotel is actually making, generating enough money or not. But where you play a role, so this is where you play a very pivotal role. As a manager, one of the things you must learn to do or help the owners do is that you must ensure that your total operating expenses is at the barest minimum. So this is where you cut costs, but ensure that the quality of service do not drop as a result of cutting costs. So let's move. We'll start talking about all the abbreviations you actually saw. Now, so B, so hotel financial KPIs and their application. So everything you saw that we listed were actually the hotel financial KPIs and the application. So number one, we talk about ADR. ADR simply means average daily rate. Now, average daily rate here is actually average rate of room sold. Now, when we talk about average rate of room sold, many managers just, how would I put it? Many managers just know room rate, occupancy, and they don't know average room sold or average daily rate. Average daily rate. Now, how do you get to your average daily rate? So please take out your calculators or piece of paper and you take these formulas down. Now, for you to be able to know what your average daily rate is. Now, you put the total revenue. So if your rooms is, let's say 100, and today what you've made in room sales is, let's say, 6 million. Now you divide, so please, you can use your calculator. Let's pick a figure. Let's say 6 million naira is the total money you've generated from selling, let's say 40 rooms or 50 rooms. Now, when you divide 6 million naira by 100 rooms, the number, no, sorry, when you divide, 6 million naira by your number of rooms sold, what you get is your average daily rate. So you can do a math. So let's say 6 million divided by 40 rooms sold. Now, the number you actually get is your average daily rate. So if you do the math, let me know how much, maybe you can drop it on the group or drop it on the chat. Let's know how much you get. Whatever amount you get. So divide 6 million by 40 rooms that you sold. Now, what you get is actually your average daily rate. So every day in your facility, for those of you that are running accommodation business, put the total numbers of rooms together that you sold. Now divide it for total amount of money, because most times you give discount, most times you do block booking. At the end of the day, put all of them together, divide the total numbers of rooms by the total amount that you sold for that day. That will actually give you what we call the average daily rate. So as a manager, one of the things you must do on daily basis is that you must be able to put your average daily rate together. And in a month, at the end of the month, how to achieve the total daily rate in a month is that put all the rooms you sold in a month. If it's 3,000 rooms, put the amount of money that you made for selling 3,000 rooms and divide it. Whatever it gives you is actually your average daily rate summed up in the month. That's how you get your average daily rate. Now, let's talk about forecasting, budgeting, in full explanation. Number one, budgeting. Now, as a manager, you must estimate expected revenue. It is very important. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying that you always be accurate, but there must be, now, for you to be able to budget, you must be able to forecast. So you work with previous, let's say you work with track record of what has happened previously. You work with trends. You work with previous performances. That's how you are able to, project, estimated revenue. Now you plan for expected expenses. Now, if you run a facility for 1 month, if you're not a you're already in business and you've run the business for, let's say, 1 month, 2 months, you have proofs, you have track record that you can fall back to that helps you to plan expenses and helps you to even plan expected revenue. So for budgeting, you must estimate expected revenue, you must plan for expected expenses, you must identify and determine cost-saving areas. So meaning that in your budget, you must say this particular area was overspent last month and this is what I'm doing to mitigate costs. It should come up in your budget. Then you must learn to allocate resources wisely. And that's what I always advise. When you do your budget in a month, break it down into weekly, then see your performance, see how you're doing. Because most times you budget an event, it doesn't come. So it means that this week's budget, the week's budget that you overplan for, have an overshoot into the next week. So meaning that if I spent 10 million this week planning for an event and the event didn't come through, and next week I shouldn't spend 10 million again, because there's something we had planned for that didn't happen. So this week, instead of spending 10 million, we can spend 3 million. At the end of the month, you can prove it, you can back it up, because yes, you work with facts and figures. Not that this week you spend 10 million and you did not even generate something close. So you should have enough stock, and next week you are spending another 10 million when you cannot prove what this other 10 million did for you. So if you spend high in week 1 and the turnover is low, you should have enough stock that will make you reduce your expenditure in week 2. Then we talk about forecast. This is how you forecast. Somebody has put an event in the space. I should know that plus or minus this person will spend 1 million. He helps you to forecast that next week the company should make 10 million because there's this that is outlined. So these are the things that helps you when you're planning a forecast for your company. Booking pace, trends, what is happening around the space, events, do you have any bookings, or are you connecting to other managers to help you bring events, but past performances during this period, like in Akwa Ibom now, this period is the Christmas village, whatever. The hotels are going to enjoy more patronage because apartment people have decided to go mad with their rate. Now, that's current market situation. So what it means is that we're going to have more people book suite. We're going to have more people book, 1-2 bedrooms in a hotel. Like, unlike other years that people will come back and the apartments will full. So this year, that's the current market trend that is affecting Lagos. That it's positive for hotels, but negative for apartment people. Now, if you're running an apartment, it's also a smart period to see that, okay, since others have raised their price, now you can stay at your normal price and just use 1 or 2 things to mark up your profit. You can decide to offer maybe a chef and add money to your services just to benefit from the market situation. Now, forecasting helps managers adjust operations, staffing, and inventory. That's what forecasting helps managers do. Number 2, let's talk about occupancy. Now, occupancy is simply how many rooms we sold. So the formula is simply rooms sold. So if you sold 30 rooms and your rooms are 100, or 40 rooms and your rooms are 100, the formula for occupancy is simply your rooms sold divided by available rooms times 100%. That will give you your occupancy rate. So please take note of this. It's very important. Now, I will quickly just jump to RevPAR. RevPAR is simply revenue per available. RevPAR is simply revenue per available rooms. Now, interestingly, most of us have been using these languages. Thomas, you're coming when we are almost ending the class, but we'll continue. Now, so RevPAR is, simply a revenue per available rooms. Now, RevPAR combines ADR and occupancy. And when I started, I said that ADR is simply your average daily rate. So RevPAR here is your revenue per available room. And I said here, it combines your ADR, which is your average daily rate, and your occupancy. Now, if you are to get your RevPAR for the day, now what you do is you times your average daily rate. So I don't know how much we got there from the average daily rate I asked you guys to, calculate. You times your average daily rate times occupancy. Say your occupancy is 40, now, and your RevPAR was 37,000. Oh, sorry, your average daily rate was 37,000. For you to be able to get your RevPAR, like I had said earlier, you times your ADR, which is your average daily rate, times your occupancy to get your RevPAR. Or the other way around. Now, for this, we are talking about RevPAR, and I said RevPAR is your revenue per available room, which combines ADR and occupancy. Now, ADR, I said, is average daily rate. So if you don't do this way, you can do it rooms revenue divided by available rooms. So what that means is that you add your rooms revenue. How much did you generate from room today? You put it together, and I don't like the fact that we're having a lot of people join this class this date. I am not happy at all. I am not happy, but I will just, for the last time, I will let this slide. I will not talk about this again. I'll just go ahead and do what we have to do. And like I said, even if it's 10 people remaining on this for the next 1 or 2 weeks, we are good with it. Now, so let me conclude on this. So for you to be able to achieve your revenue per available room, it's either you combine your ADR times occupancy or your rooms revenue divided by available rooms. Now, this is how you measure revenue efficiency at your front desk or affect your occupancy. Please, you ask your questions at the end of the class. Then we have number 4, which is the GOPAR. GOPAR simply means gross operating profit per available room. Now, so you must be able to know what your gross operating profit is now. And remember, we established that gross profit is actually, profit that you get after you've deducted all your operational expenses. Now, so what this actually means is that, we are talking about profit gotten after you've deducted everything that you used to make up a room. Now, so this actually shows hotels' profitability per room. For an example, just because you're selling room 60,000 does not mean that the hotel is making 60,000 from the room. Now, this is where most managers clearly do not have an understanding. Yes, most of us do, but we don't have time to sit down and actually, work these things around and know how much we are making per room. So, I said here, this shows your hotel's profitability per room. Now, so how do you actually determine what a GOPA is? Now, I said here, what you do is gross operating, expenses. So what you do is you divide available rooms. So if your numbers of rooms is let's say 30, you divide available rooms, from your gross operating cost. So if let's say the cost of a room is by cost of a room now, by cost of selling one room, I mean everything you need to sell a room. That's the cost of cleaning the room, cost of your amenities, the cost of your complimentary. Now, when you add all this together, let's say you sold 30 rooms, and all these 30 rooms, the cost of each room, the cost of making one room available is 1,500 naira. When you add 1,500 naira together, you divide it by you divide the available rooms. So let's say your total numbers of rooms is 100. You divide 100 by your GOP. That actually gives you your GOPA, which is your gross operating profit per available room. And like I said, when we started this training, gross operating profit is for per available room is actually how much you're making for a particular room after you've deducted, the cost of making one room available. So what that means is that everything that goes into your room has to be properly costed for. Your soap, your tissue, your complementary items, all these things has to be properly costed for you to be able to know what your gross operating profit per available room is. Now, number 5, TREVPA, total revenue per available room. This includes revenue from all the departments. TREVPA, total revenue per available room. Now, you see, this, like I said, includes revenue from all departments. Total revenue per available room includes all revenue from all the departments. I had explained what flow through is. Now, flow through, like I said, actually shows how much revenue gain, became profit. So it means that for flow through, it's actually part of the funds, let's say revenue that you did not maybe budget for or forecast for that it was going to come. Let's say you budgeted or you estimated that your company was going to make 36 million or make 35 million. At the end of the day, you guys made additional 1 million, aside the money that you budgeted for. And out of that 1 million, only 400 was used for the expenses or whatever, operating cost, and 600 is profit. That particular profit is actually called flow through. Now, the reason why it's flow through is because it was not initially captured as part of the in your estimate or forecast of the profit for that month, but it came. Now, whatever profit you make from that extra money is actually what we call a flow through. A high flow through indicates efficient cost management. Okay, so let me move, guys. All right. Thomas, are you here?
Yes,
Thomas,
I am.
Are you ready? Should I hand over to you? I think we are almost, let me see where we are. Okay, so let me just pause and take your question. I think we've gone far. I'm on the 20th slide. I've done 18 slides of 25 slides. I've done 18 slides of 25 slides. So let me pause so you can take questions. So please, you can unmute and we can take questions. Any questions, guys? Okay. So are we saying that everybody is very clear and we are catching up? Is that what we are saying?
Thus far, I am catching up. That's fine. Catching up, sir.
Okay.
Sorry, sir. I just joined in. So, but I think for what I just now, I'm cool.
Okay. So let me continue, guys. So let's talk about cost optimization. So basically, like I said, this okay, Tracy, I understand for there are some of the things that but like I said, whatever you don't understand, Tracy, because this particular training is for, in fact, for people that have not been in the industry for a while, they will still struggle to catch up. But after the training, you can listen to the material again. You can do more research to add to the ones you don't understand. That aside the questions we'll try to take. So ask your questions where you don't understand, and we'll try to answer as much as we can. This class is supposed to last longer. So basically, I've rushed many things, but we'll be ready to answer most of your questions. Okay. So let's quickly jump into cost optimization. Yes, go ahead.
Before you proceed, sorry, sir.
Yes.
Just to chip in that a class of this nature has very much to do with financials. So for people who
Yes.
are basically in operations, in administration, and then day-to-day departmental management, it will be difficult to catch up with a class such as this. But however, like you mentioned earlier, it is supposed to be a class that will take a longer time. So for somebody like Tracy, who just mentioned that she's not clear about a few things, what will help us to gain better understanding is that people will be particular about their questions or the areas where they do not understand. If you don't understand what RevPAR is and how it should help you and what you need to know about it, you note it down, then you can put up questions pertaining to RevPAR. If it is management account that is a problem for you, then you can put down such questions, but the question needs to be particular. Because if you try to grab everything all in one, you might miss everything at once. So what will help us is be particular about your kind of question. Is it a RevPAR question? Is it a GoPAR question? Is it a management account question? Is it an income statement question? A cost of sales question? Whatever that is. So when you are particular, it will help us to be able to address your concern. Thank you. Continue, sir.
Okay. Thank you so much, Thomas. And sorry about your network. Okay. So maybe you would take a refresher class to detail it for people. So let's quickly talk about cost optimization. And like you said, for even most people that have been in the sector, yes, it takes a while to understand most of these things, but it's continuous learning that actually helps people. But pick the ones you can, excuse me, guys, the ones you're having issues, ask questions, definitely we'll be able to answer, you get better. So let's look at cost optimization. Now, cost optimization is simply you as a manager knowing how to manage your cost. And like I said, you see, reduction in quality is actually not cost optimization, because this is where a lot of brands actually miss it. Now, you feel because, for an example, most brands go for very cheap quality of tissue in the name of, cost control. Now, I have said this and I've emphasized, cost optimization or cost management is actually not reducing quality. It's actually maintaining quality or finding a way to manage the cost or reducing the cost and ensuring that it doesn't affect the quality of service. So once you reduce quality of service and you add cost optimization, it is not cost optimization, because once it affects quality of service, you fail in that particular process. Now, but let's look at food cost control measures. Number one, like we said, you see, if you don't set standard recipes for food, your kitchen will be down. For an example, this particular chef will cook with 3 Maggi. This one will cook with 2 Maggi. This one will cook with a full crayfish of 1,000 naira, because nobody has standardized the recipes. Now, so one of the best ways to be able to manage food in your space, be it your kitchen, your restaurant, or a cafe, is that you must standardize recipes. And this is a very rigorous process. This way you have to hold your chef down. Like I said, if you can work on an Excel sheet, itemize each of your menu item on an Excel sheet, and break it down into the things that goes into the menu or goes into the meal for an example. So if it's rice, break it down: rice, quantity, size. So your recipe sheet must have name of item. You must have, all the items. So name of food or meal, for an example, you must have all the items that goes into that particular meal. Then you must have unit, you must have sizes. So even Maggi has size too. So you must have sizes or quantity. Now you must itemize this because this is what you use to determine the unit cost, and you put all these things together. Now you see, once you do this and you hand it over to your kitchen, another thing is implementation. Somebody must be there to ensure that these processes are followed. Now, this thing is not just only to help you cut costs, it's also to standardize your food test. So what that helps the brand to do is that it helps you to manage costs and nobody goes overboard. But it also helps you to ensure that, sorry guys, I just had a call out to end that. It also helps you to ensure that your cost is at the same level. So nobody is going above or going below because you've standardized the recipe. Number two is portion control. Now, one thing that most kitchen managers don't like doing is they don't like portioning. Now, so if you're managing a brand, one of the things you must do at the early stage of the brand is that you must teach your people to portion. So there must be portion control. Now, let it be that it's the thing that you cannot portion that is left. Let's say salt. But even salt should have, there should be a definition of the quantity of salt that goes into a particular meal. Is it a pinch of salt? When we say pinch, there should be something in the kitchen that shows what a pinch of salt should look like. So everybody gets to know. Because most of the mistakes we've made as brand managers is that we've assumed that the kitchen people should know what a pinch of salt should look like. And at the end of the day, they now go to do something else. So you have food quality not coming out the same. And in the area of portion control, there's no accurate portion. So portioning is very key. Now somebody will say, do we portion here? Everything in the kitchen, apart from the very minutest of things, can be portioned. Because for every meal you prepare, there should be a quantity of water that goes into it. So if water has the quantity that should go into a particular meal, who says every other thing cannot be portioned? So when they give you that excuse, I know we have one or two chefs here, so they can also tell us why they cannot portion something. When they give you that kind of excuse that it cannot be portioned, now know the quantity of that thing that cannot be portioned, that can go into a particular meal. That's one of the ways that will help you, cut costs and also standardize your process. Now, the third one is vendor quality check. One of the things most smaller brands fail to do is that most managers will now bring in vendors that are related to them. They are friends, they are relative. And once you start doing these things, you can't check your vendors. You don't check for the pricing just because you know the person. Then you don't even check for the quality. So understand this. If the quality of yam that is supplied to the kitchen is not good, let's say 10 tubers of yams they supplied, and out of the 10 tubers, 4 wasn't good, it's going to affect your overhead, kitchen overhead, because you did not check to be sure that the quality of the yam was okay. So vendor check is very key. Now, how do you do vendor check? First of all, it starts with your vendor onboarding. Now, this is a very high level management training, so if you're privileged. Now, let me break down this vendor thing and I'll jump from there. Maybe I'll hand over some part of this to Thomas to finish. Now, vendor check starts with your vendor onboarding. How do you onboard your vendors? There must be things you require your vendors to have before you onboard a vendor. Let's say for example, a vendor that's sells fish or things that come from the river. There are certain things. This man is coming very late. Yeah, so now I admit somebody at this time again. Now, for a vendor that sells, let's say, frozen items, that's what I was looking for. Frozen items. Now, if you work with a vendor that has a space and has capacity to deliver whatever quantity you want, you are sure of first getting quality items because the vendor is not running helter-skelter to source for things. Number two, you're sure of getting good pricing because the vendor has this product in large quantities. Then you're sure of timely delivery. Then you're sure that the vendor's pricing is very competitive because the vendor is known. This is what the vendor has been doing. But when you carry your relative that is not in the fish business, and your relative has to go and source for the fish or source for this frozen item from another vendor, or now come and supply at a smaller price or smaller quantity, the price would definitely not be the same. So one of the things you must learn to do is that you must go through a proper vendor onboarding process. Now, list criteria for your vendors to meet. Now, for your frozen items, you must list the kind of vendor: a vendor that has track record in business, a vendor that has certain quantity, a vendor that can deliver with social time, a vendor that can give you price that is very competitive, a vendor that understands that this is the quality you want these things to come. Now, your vendor process, your vendor onboarding process would also help determine the quality of things that is supplied to your facility. So what that means is that for every item that is supplied to your facility, there must be KPIs, there must be standards for them. The vendors must agree to meet those standards, because that's one of the things that will also help your cost. So you must take note of it. Then, most importantly, your receiving process. Let me use for an example. Now, if I have been a safety manager before, so I'll say this one from the point of experience. Now, when you're supplied tomatoes, for an example, that is soft, the tendency that you have to hurry and use that tomato is like 99%. It's like 99%. But when you have such vendors supply you and you reject them from the point of supply, it will help to reduce the risk of losing that particular product, because you've identified that this product cannot last on its own. So if you don't hurriedly grind the tomatoes and maybe put them in containers and put them in the fridge, the tendency that you lose those tomatoes in the next few days is there. So your receiving procedures needs to be properly articulated and written down for every item. Is it for frozen food? If your vendors supply frozen foods that are not properly frozen, they've started melting, they've started having odors, you should have a receiving process that rejects those things, because the tendency that this thing is going to last is not there. So your receiving process should be very articulated and well defined. Now, waste log. Waste log is simply how you manage wastages in the system. Now, understand this. There are things that will help you mitigate wastages. First of all, the kind of product you receive will help you, mitigate wastages. So if you receive product, for an example, if you receive product that have a 6 months, less than 6 months expiry date. Now, the tendency that you have to hurry and use that product is there. So it means that if, let's say, suppliers bring, let's say, tin tomatoes to you, and those tin tomatoes, let's say it's a carton and have 2 months expiry date. Now, you will do your brand so much good if those things are rejected, because you need a product that has a longer lifespan in case it's not used up on time. So your waste log will be reduced if your process of receiving goods is in place and there's no favoritism. Now, you must also introduce what we call the first in, first out, the FIFO, which Thomas talked about the other time. So meaning that even in your store, if your facility has a store, or your fridge, for an example, let me talk about the fridge, in the kitchen, in the bar, in the store, whatever. Your storage pattern has to be well defined. For an example, items that are coming in new should not be sitting on items that have already been there. So what it means is that when you bring in new product into your fridge, your freezers, or whatever it is, the old products that have been there needs to be brought out for these ones to go in, so that you're sure that what you're using is actually the old one. So you don't keep stocking up things, because you walk into certain kitchen, the things that are on there have been there for months, because they keep bringing things and piling up on top. At the end of the day, those things, because they've overstayed the time they would have stayed, they get back. So that increases the waste log of the facility. The same with drinks. When you bring in drinks today, and most brands you see, they bring in this, they keep storing in the fridge, putting it. Nobody bothers to bring in the other ones that was there and put these ones behind. So your waste logs are increased when you don't know how to properly store or manage your product. Then the last one, still under food cost, is menu engineering. Most brands and most people just fix menus. They don't bother to check the pricing. They don't bother to do recipe to know what it is. They just, okay, a plate of rice and chicken, put it at 7,000. Nobody bothers to check. So menu engineering is something you must learn to do. This is a process where you put down all your menu items, all the things that's going to be on your menu, and you properly cost it and know how much it takes to produce one item. So it means everything on your menu must be costed as a single, meal. To know how much it takes to produce a meal, then there are meals that cost very high to produce, and the sell volume, you cannot overcharge it. If you have such meals, see, there's nothing wrong in taking off some meals in your menu and replacing them with something that the company can make money from. All you need is waiters and waitresses that can upsell whatever you have on the menu. So your menu engineering is very key. Number 2, beverage cost control. I talked about beverage cost. I talked about par levels for bar. So for bar, you must have par levels, periodic order. You must also have meter dispensers because of the kind of bartenders, the kind of bartenders and waiters and waitresses that we have now. You must have meter dispensers. So what it means is that meter dispensers will help you to track how your spirit or whatever is used. In fact, for your bartenders or mixologists, if you want to take a step further, even the drinks they use, have a metered whatever for them, even for the drinks they use for mixing cocktails. Let it be in a metered form so that it can be tracked to reduce your cost in buying drinks. Now we have bar variance analysis. Bar variance analysis is simply when you're able to check your different products and see which one is doing well, which one is not doing well, which one you're making more money, and which one you're not making more money. So let me explain this. It is not all products in your bar that you must mark up 100%. Now there are products that will make up for other products, and there are products that will make up for another product. So it is not because somebody has said mark up 100% in the bar. You now buy a drink of, most times you notice that those drinks that you mark up 100% already, maybe the cost of purchase is already high. Let's say you buy a Martell of 85,000 or a Martell of 95,000, and you run a lounge that doesn't have very high clientele, and you now mark it up by, let's say, 100%. That's already about 160%, 160,000 or 165, or one, depending of how much you marked it up. Now that drink, if that drink might sit in your bar for months, nobody buys, just because your markup for that particular drink is very much. So if you decide to mark up that drink by, let's say, 50% or let's say 40%, you will still make money. Then you must identify other drinks that you can use to make more money. For an example, this new drink that just came out, Valentine. Valentine belongs to the Martell family. Now, Valentine is very cheap in the market. I think it's about 18,000 or 17,000. But that's another whiskey that you can now sell, let's say, for a 60 and sell 70,000. Because it's a nice blend and a very fine wine. People will not even pay attention. So you use that particular money to, cover for the variance that happened on the Martell. So these are things you must learn to understand, because most times in the process of marking up the 100% on every product, you've actually lost business for some product, and there's no turnover. So a product will lie in your bar for 1 year, nobody buys. Meanwhile, if the price was favorable, we would have sold that product 2, 3, 4 times in 1 or 2 months. So you must understand this bar variance analysis. Then sales mix tracking. Now, sales mix tracking for cost control, like I tried to explain before, is when you're able to have a track record of everything that is selling in your bar. The ones that are selling more, the ones that are not selling more. Then you see what you can also do. You know which drinks you have to spend more money in buying, and which one you have to reduce your purchase power. So for an example, you cannot be buying, let's say, 20 cartons of Star every month, and it keeps staying for 2, 3 months, nobody's buying it. Meanwhile, you know that maybe Heineken or Desperado sells more. So what you do when you can track your sales mix is reduce the volume in the products that are not selling that much, because you've been able to track it, and rather use that difference in the other products that are doing very well. But you will be able to do this. So you're not increasing your cost for the owners. You're not increasing your budget. All you're doing is that you've looked at your sales mix and you know which one does better and which one doesn't do better. And lastly, theft prevention. That's still for cost optimization for food and beverage. Now, there's so much theft in F&B through cocktails. One of the areas you need to close out in this F&B is cocktails. And for brands that run like a club, you need to understand that you need to close your loopholes with whiskeys and brandy, understanding that most of these waiters and bartenders, they are people that bring in product for them. So you have to know all the areas that your staff use in, stealing from the company, aside your soft, besides closing the gap on people actually selling and, pocketing money or using their personal account to collect money. These are areas you need to close the gaps on. Now let's talk about labor costs, staff scheduling. Now, analyze your business volume. There are times, yes, just because the facility is big and fine, does not mean that your sales volume, meets the number of staffs you have. So you must analyze your business volume, so to know that, to be able to determine if the numbers of staff you have is actually necessary. Because most times, yes, I've seen brands that have very many staffs for their outlet, and at the end of the day, the volume of things they sell, I don't think is able to cater for those staff. So one of the things you must do as a manager is you must analyze your business volume to be sure that you actually need the numbers of people you are actually having to attend to a lot of people. What you can do in this kind of situation is you can ask people to multitask. If you run a business that your volume of sales is not there and you have a lot of people that are working, you can ask people to multitask. You can double roles for people, understand people's performance, and you can pick the ones that are good and they can double down and do the jobs of two people, and you reduce your labor cost. Because most times, yes, we've made mistakes of having adequate numbers of staff in strategic areas, but the volume of business is not there. So we end up spending more, and the volume of business is not commiserating. So you must analyze your business volume, maintain optimal staffing. What this simply means is that if you run a business, like I opened a brand, that I had a cashier, I had another taker, and I had bartenders. But at some point, you discover that, the cashiers were lazy because they felt, okay, their own is just to collect money. So we had to make the roles of the other takers and the cashiers. So we had to let go a good number of cashiers because they were not performing. So you must maintain optimal staffing. So at every point in time, you must be able to analyze your staff performance and say, okay, do I need this number of staff in this particular area? Can one person man here? Can one person man here? Just to be sure that you're not overstaffing and the revenue is not actually coming in like it's supposed to come. Now, the other one is avoid unnecessary overtime. If it's not necessary, Nigerian brands don't even pay overtime. If it's not necessary, don't do overtime. Just reduce your cost. Now, the last one is cross-training for efficiency. One of the things I teach brands to do is train your staff to be able to perform across different units. For an example, if you have housekeepers that work night and the bar is busy, instead of employing more people to join the bar, you deploy the housekeepers. They can do something. They can clear the tables. They can, help to wash glass. What you've done is that you've trained them to be able to perform in any unit they find themselves. Then the fourth one is inventory management. Power level, which I've talked about, periodic automatic replenishment. So you need to set, for you to be able to get your inventory right, there are certain things you need to put in place. Now, number one, like I said, is power level or power stock. Now, like I said, it's a periodic automatic replenishment of stock. What this means is that you must have a stock level. Now, every of your items must have, a stock reorder level. So what that means is that when those items are reduced to that particular level, it must be automatically ordered for. So if you're running a bar, once your, let's say, your Desperado has reduced to 10 crates in the store, you don't need to start running around. All you need to do is order for it because there's an agreed power level for each product. Now, this is what you need to do across all your products. Now, do this and let your owner say, I will not honor it. But let's be that you try to put power levels across all the stocks in the brand so that you don't run out. So when you walk into brands and here there's no good meat, no this, there's no that. Let it be that it's only on the occasion that you were taken unawares. Maybe a large number of people actually walked into this place and those things finished. Let it not be on the premise that you did not have a power level and nobody paid attention to these things. Now, we have purchase order system. So every system, no matter how small it is, should have a purchase order system. What that means is that you should have a planned out purchase system for dry stock, for wet stock, for drinks, for everything. So if there are items that need to be ordered from a vendor, you raise an LPO once that thing is ready, or once that thing has gotten to a power level, you raise an LPO. If it's items that needs to go to the market, once it has gotten to a par level. Now there should be another a purchase order system that is raised. So every system should have a purchase order system. So even if it's you are developing like sheet of papers, but let it be that every week there's a purchase system. You can't be going to the market every day. So you can say, okay, every Monday is for beverage, Tuesday is for wet stock, Wednesday is for this. So you know that this purchase system is properly itemized. Then when it is bought, whatever is bought, now you're not buying things because they are finished. You're buying things to replenish the reorder level. So at no point is it a panic buy. You're buying to beef up your stock. You're not buying because that's finished. What most brands have done over years is that they panic buy. And once you panic buy, you're not buying most times you're not buying at the right place because it's a panic buy. There's no time to go to the right place. So you end up spending more. And at that point, cost is not optimized. Next one is store requisition controls. There must be requisition for everything that comes out of the store, goes out of the store, properly signed. And, as managers, you must follow up every last requisition. Yes, 30 bottles of whiskey was taken out last week. You must see how it was expended, how it went out. So you don't just sign everything that comes to your table just because, they said it has finished or it's almost finished. There must be a proper store requisition control. Then there must be monthly stock taking that is done to check the level of stock, because you cannot close your month. You cannot even, when you're done doing your P&L, at the end of the day, yes, most times, let's say the owner has released 20 million to you for the month, and you made, let's say, 15 million. So what you can use to even justify your low sales is that you have stock imbalance, or you have stock balance. But when you don't even do your monthly stock taking, you'll not be able to defend that. You'll just keep telling the owner, so we have stock. But how much is the value of the stock? So you must learn to do your monthly stock taking, just to be sure of how much you're carrying over to the next month. Then lastly, under that is the FIFO method, which we talked about last time Thomas took a class. That's the first in, first out method, just to help reduce the number of wastage and damages and expiry in the system. So I move, guys. Okay, then number 5, we have here energy and utility saving. So this is still under cost optimization. How do you optimize cost through these areas? Preventive maintenance. Thomas talked about this last time. How you can use preventive maintenance is when you look for a problem and try to solve it before it even occurs. That's preventive maintenance. You look for a problem and try to solve it before it even occurs. So how you do this is, for most of your facilities, you have to schedule checks. That's where the checklist comes into play. Schedule checks for your room items, schedule checks for your generators, schedule checks for almost everything in your facility that you know is being used every day. There must be checks to ensure that you don't wait for it to spoil. For an example, let me use generator. Now, in any well set up facility, generator usage is 250 hours. Now, that generator, once it gets to 240 hours, a sensible manager should have started making, once it gets to 200 hours, sorry, 240 is too long. Once it gets to 200 hours, a sensible manager would have started making requisition. And remember I said that if you have a system that is well planned and you have a good budgeting system, you would buy most of these your servicing items on ground, so that when it gets to this period of servicing, you don't need to start making requisition to buy anymore. You already have filters, you have oil, you have some of the few things that are needed in good numbers, maybe 2, 3, or 4, so that when it gets to the period of servicing, you can easily service without having to call the owner to look for a lot of money, because it was planned and captured in your budget, because you knew that when it gets to 200 hours, you need to start planning for servicing. That is preventive maintenance. Now, when that generator is not serviced on time and it breaks down, you now spend more money. Service is affected because somebody did not go through the part of preventive maintenance by ensuring that these things are planned and budgeted for. Then we have LED usage. So if you are to advise your owners, ensure that your lighting system in your rooms, your corridors, your whatever, is LED. LED usage helps to reduce cost. The normal type of bulb system, in fact, that's why when I walk into brands and I see very heavy light, I ask if the owners or people that work for the owners, I've taken time to advise the owners, because these things at the end of the day is reflected on your utility cost. So you must learn to advise your owners that LED lights are like the best to help you guys manage cost in the facility, because most facilities are doing as high as 30 million, 50 million, 20 something million, 18, depending on usage. So AC schedule based on occupancy. This is very important. If I encourage, Thomas said it last time, encourage your managers when you step out of your office, even for a few minutes, off your ACs. Encourage ACs management through the corridors, through strategic areas that don't see. If if I have a team that is conscious about this thing, and every day there's a walkthrough to ensure that energy is saved, at the end of the month, even if you save 500,000 and this little amount is saved across all the departments, you would have optimized costs. You would have saved costs for your company across all the areas. Water management. Thomas talked about this last time. I will not talk about that again. Just because the company does not buy water does not mean that water that is being wasted, that water that is wasted needs energy. When you pump water more times than you're supposed to pump in a day, it's affecting your meter. It reads in the meter. When you have what is it called? A laundry unit that doesn't understand uses of machines, and it's just when they see NEPA, that's when they go and honor the big machines. At the end of the month, so you would have a very high bill because you're not paying attention. But if you're paying attention, you even schedule your laundries on how to use which machines to alternate, the operations, just to help you reduce the cost. Because at the end of the month, they will not be there to face the owners when you are facing the owners. So let me talk about owner reporting and financial communication. Now, managers must learn. Sorry, guys. Managers must learn to present monthly performance, explain variances clearly. So monthly performance here includes your revenue, your cost of operations, your highest selling product, your low selling product, areas you do not perform well, what you're looking to do to improve, your forecast for the next month. Now, these are all the things you must be able to present at the end of the month. Then you must be able to explain variances to owners. Now, let it be that you have tried and they are telling you they are not interested. But don't be the type that have not even tried, because that will show that, you don't know what you're doing. So you must learn to explain variances, to your owners. Provide strategies for improvement. Strategies for improvement. Avoid excuses and emotional languages. Now, these are things you must learn to avoid. Use numbers, not opinion. Now, every owner likes numbers. Now, when you're talking numbers, owners will listen faster than just opinion, because most of our opinions are emotional and they are not factual. Now, so learn to ensure that when you go to your owners to talk about certain things, especially when it has to do with expenditure, you have fact and numbers at the back of your arm or on your palm, just to confirm them. Because most times you just go, we talk and talk. What's the numbers? If the owner spends this amount of money, what are you projecting? If the owner is repairing this, why is he repairing it? What is the motive? Or what have you done to ensure that he doesn't have to spend this kind of money again? So you must be able to use numbers, not just opinions, to talk to owners. Then the last one says build credibility and trust. Now, you will build credibility faster and trust when they know that you talk fact, numbers, and they're accurate. You will build more credibility when you're able to go to your owners and they know that you understand, you are financially involved with the brand, and you're conscious with your cost optimization and revenue generation. You will build more trust with owners when you always look to propose things that will help them manage costs while increasing revenue without, affecting the quality of service. But you can only do this when you pay attention to the fact, the figures, and you're able to understand the financial movement of the brand, either downward or upward. Example of effective communication. Now, assuming So this is just an example of how to most times while your owners or whatever, food cost increased by 7% due to supplier percentage. Sorry, food cost increased by 7% due to supplier price changes. So you can only do this when you've been able to, analyze how market factors have affected you people's overhead costs in the kitchen. So when you're communicating with owners, you should be able to know how many percent, and these things can be done by knowing how much you spent last month, how much you spend this month. You can use it to find the percentage. So it says here, food costs increased by 7% due to supplier price changes, corrective action, renegotiation of contract. So that's your approach. You've told the owner that yes, this month we had a 7% increase due to price changes, but this month that we're going into, I've called the suppliers, or I'm going into the market to negotiate fresh contract with other people just to help us drop. What you've done is that you've given them a percentage of increase. You've told them why this thing increased, and you've told them the solution. Now they will learn to listen to you because you come telling them the problem and also telling them why you're going to go about solving the problem. They will learn to listen to you better. Now, another example is revenue growth of 12% did not convert to profit because labor hours increased by 20%. Action, schedule optimization. Now, this is you understanding the problem and providing solution to the problem. Not just telling the owner, we spent too much money on staffing. What have you done to reduce the amount of money that was spent on staffing? I think this is where we start ending. Linking financial result to guest experience. Number one, so these are financial result also linked to guest experience. Number one, poor service, revenue leakages. So what poor service does is that poor service would definitely result in revenue leakage. Once service is poor, you start losing business, you start losing customers. At the end of the day, it will affect your poor service. So when you don't pay attention to poor service, it will definitely have an effect on your revenue. Now, these are examples of poor services that actually would affect your revenue. Number one, slow check-in will definitely come up to negative reviews and lower occupancy. Two, poor housekeeping quality. So once your housekeeping process is very poor, the rooms is not clean, the room is smelling, cigarette and all those things, a lot of people will just check in and check out. So you have a lot of refunds issue. Then at some point, you start giving people free rooms or giving them extra rooms or extra night just because you want to compensate them. So the company is losing money. Understand that for every time you have to compensate a guest for poor service, the company loses money. So every bad service actually, results in revenue leakage. The next one is food delays. Once there's food delays, there's guest satisfaction. And once there's guest satisfaction, the guests will start taking their business to somewhere else because they are not satisfied. So they will take their money to somewhere else. And at that point, you start having lower F&B revenue. Then maintenance failures. Once you have maintenance failures, the AC in the room is not working. You have to upgrade someone to a bigger room. The company loses money. So all these things and several other ones would also occur, result in the company losing money because we are not paying attention to all these things. And I said here, managers must see that guest experience and profitability are inseparable. So you must understand that, for you to be able to even make more profit, guest experience has to be exceptionally good. So you cannot be a manager that is only focusing on guest experience. Now, if you don't also pay attention to profitability, then you are not ready because it's in guest experience that you make more. It's in a good and exceptional guest experience that you make more profit because people will return. There will be return businesses. They will definitely referrals. So this is a scenario. So this scenario is supposed to be acted out. It says here, profit dropped despite high occupancy situation. So this is the situation. Occupancy increased from 68% to 78%. That's 10% increment in occupancy. But profit dropped by 8%. So occupancy has increased by 10%, but profit has dropped by 10%. Number one, managers must analyze where staffing hours were too high. So these are scenarios. Number two, was there due to increased volume? Number three, did housekeeping overtime increase? Now, number four, average daily rate dropped too low? So that when you give too much discount, too much reduction, yes, you might have increase. So let's assume you 30%, 30% discount, and you give it a lot, give it a lot, give it a lot, and you now have more occupancy. So you might have a 30% increment in occupancy, but you might have a drop in profit just because there was a slash in the room rate. There's increment in occupancy, but there's a drop in profit. So it actually happened. Were there too many complementary items? So if you have too many complementary items, it has a way of reducing profitability of the room. Participant must defend the analysis to the group. Now, so put this together. Take this analysis, put them together. Now, and give us in the next classes that we'll be doing, you give us instances where you feel any of this actually affected the profit. What do you think? Analyze it with respect to your brand. What do you think would affect the profit, even when occupancy would have increased? Now, role play 2, handling a budget meeting with honors. This is how we advise you handle budget meeting with honors. Number 1, managers must prepare performance report for every department. So it means for every month, you must know how each of your department perform. Now, did they perform higher? Did they perform lower? You must have performance report. And you can only have this when you have KPIs, when you've been able to fast track your daily operations through, you check sales, you check people's responses, you check reviews. This is how you're able to prepare a performance report. Number 2, one positive achievement. So when you're doing your budget, you must be able to tell the owners one positive thing or 2 that the brand was able to achieve in the course of the month. Now, it is after then that you now move to challenge, because yes, there needs to be a good thing that the brand has done. It cannot be every time bad. So performance report, positive achievement, 1 challenge, then 3 corrective actions. Now, this is supposed to be a role play. So this particular one, will take this one out. But this is how your budget is supposed to be. Understand, for those of you that joined this class earlier, I said that your budget is not supposed to carry only your expenses. Your budget is supposed to carry your expenses. Your budget is supposed to carry your estimated forecast. And your budget is supposed to carry your estimated revenue. Now, at the end of the day, when your budget carries this, your budget must also carry performance report every month, to see how the company performed. If the company performed well or performed below expectation, 1 positive achievement, and your budget must also carry the challenges that is facing the brand. Now, when you put all this together, the owner will know that you know what you're doing, because you come with fact, you came with achievement, and you came with a challenge, to be solved to help you perform better. Now, once you do this, it will help you build confidence, clarity, and professionalism. Now, this is a mandate for you, and I want you to take this serious. I will just quickly go through this so you take note of this and make it a part of you. Now, it says here, mandate as an hospitality leader: treat the hotel's money like your money. Don't steal it. Treat it like your money. Now, if it's your money, you will not spend it anyhow. That's what we mean here. We didn't say treat it like your money and put it in your pocket. What I meant here is treat it as your money. It's your money. You don't spend it on frivolous things. You are careful about the things you do and how you do them. So when you treat the hotel's money like your money, you will not waste it anyhow, just because you have a privilege to have access to the money. Number 2, understand your numbers weekly, not monthly. I have said this. It's from weekly that you understand your numbers monthly. So you don't wait until it's month-end. So you understand your numbers daily, you move it into weekly and monthly. Then you now have an idea of what your numbers will be a monthly. Protect revenue through excellent service. The best way to protect revenue is through excellent service. There's no 2 ways about it. Once you offer excellent service, people will pay your premium price and will not start looking for ways to cut corners. Reduce cost without harming guest experience. I've talked about that. Very important. Communicate financial information accurately. Make decisions guided by data, not emotions. Please take note of that. Decisions guided by data, not emotions. Represent the hotel's owners with diligence and professionalism. This is a resolution for you as a student of Footprint Hospitality Academy. I commit to being a financially responsible hospitality leader. I will master my numbers, control my cost, enhance revenue, and operate with integrity. I will serve guests excellently while protecting the property's financial future. As a student of Footprint Hospitality Academy, I will hold professionalism, accountability, and excellence in leadership, in financial leadership. Thank you so much as I take your questions. All right, guys. I'm ready to take your question. Okay. Did I see a question here? Okay. Okay. Okay, so Mr. Gabriel, I've seen your question. How can we use financial report to enhance profitability? What actions you are assigned to improve cost control? I don't know if these other things have answered your question, or should we still go back to it? How can we track beverage cost accurately? I don't know if I answered these things in the other slides that I did, or if I still have to.
Yes,
Mr.
yes,
Kim, yes, sir.
yes. It was answered. It was answered very, very well. Now, Mr. Allen, can I say something?
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead, please.
All right. The question that was asked now, you did touch on it. You did.
Okay.
Now, it's something that for us to implement, we need to understand the previous 3 slides, if I'm not mistaken, that you dwelt on. Now, it's a bit by bit process. I don't know what's the person who is responsible for the class that you mentioned. He did say that these are critical financials that has to be dealt with from the grassroots level. So if you're talking of costing, it is step-by-step process. It's not something that you just dip your hands into and then you think you understand it all at once. So what I would suggest, Mr. Allen,
Yes.
I don't know if, for example, in the area of this question that he just asked concerning cost and on room costing or room amenities and all of that are infused into room costing, can you help us to create like a checklist on how the person can do it? Yeah, we have the slides. Yeah, we're going to have the entire class posted on YouTube and also watch it all over again. But I don't know if it's something that you can pick one by one as in form of a checklist. You understand, when it has to do with room costing, and then see if maybe that can help, you understand me, to tackle this question that he just asked. If I think if that is done, it would help someone, especially those who are not really in the finance or have any financial background to understand where we are coming from regarding this topic of discussion.
Okay, so Mr. Kingsley, what you just do for me, you just drop what you just said, maybe on WhatsApp for me, so we know what to, because like we had said earlier, this particular class, okay, Thomas, go ahead. This particular class seems to, we might have to repeat this class for us to drive it more extensively, and I think that's where I'll hand over to Thomas, and you are also a financial person, because we need to drive these things home. But I just needed to, how will I put it, start, it's a very extensive class.
Yes, very important.
Very expensive. Mr. Thomas, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Allen. I think you've gone really very far with everything you've done here. And I will begin first by apologizing for this whole network glitch and all that. So, just like Mr. Kingsley rightly pointed out, this class for today is a top management class. And in fact, yes. So, and in fact, it is beautiful for beginners, especially people who are still climbing up the ropes of management, those who are still in departmental management, those who are still trying to run petty administration before they get up to that level of, say, consultancy, general management, financial management, so they should have gotten this type of background. So rightly, like Mr. Kingsley pointed out, in trying to cost for a room, let's say you're trying to do the costing for a room now, you're looking at the basic amenities that you put into each room. And if you must get it right with one room, it means that you look at all the items you are purchasing in order to be able to fix a particular room per month. Then you now divide it by the total number of available rooms in that month. So now you have, let's say, a 100-room capacity hotel you're running, and for you to be able, you now look at the total number of rooms you were able to sell. If the total purchases, beginning from your shower gel to your cleaning items, the mop sticks, and everything that you bought within that month to be able to clean your rooms and then fix basic amenities, your toilet papers and all that, then you now divide it by the total number of rooms you were able to sell for that month. That's the best way you can be able to arrive at what it costs you to maintain 1 room per day. It is from that one that you'll be able to now generate the average cost for that room per month. This is what will now be able to help you know when we are talking about, let's say, break even. You will now be able to know how many numbers of rooms would you have been able to sell to be able to reach a break-even point. That point where you have neither made profit nor loss, but you are still in business. You have not made profits, you have not made losses, but you are still in business. Now, before you can be able to arrive at that, this room costing per item must have been reached. And before you reach that, you'll be able to cost each item that you use for that room, both from mopping, both from sweeping, both from normal guest amenities and guest supplies and all those things that it will cost you to maintain 1 room per day. So it's a top management class, and I agree. So I don't know, like I mentioned earlier, if there are people who have particular questions that they need to ask, they can put that. But otherwise, I could just chip in a few things that I feel maybe we can share.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay. I'd like to first talk about the idea of numbers. You know, in a financial management class like what we have here now, numbers are usually boring. Numbers are sometimes the reason why people left sciences in secondary school. It's funny to say though, but as boring as numbers are in hospitality management, if you don't have them at your fingertips, you will lose grip of management. They are the backbone of whatever you're going to do. So as a manager, as a consultant, or whatever you are doing at senior management level, if you don't have your numbers intact, then you're already losing out on that. So every manager must be able to know how many numbers, as it regards to your guest supplies, as it regards to purchase, as it regards to food and beverage stocking, as it regards to your number of room sales, as it regards to manpower, your numbers are key. So everybody must put this. Then I'm moving to the second thing, which is recipe costing and development. Mr. Allen, you did a good job talking about how to develop recipes, because without developing them and costing them, you will automatically just be running a hotel where a chef continually keeps requesting for things without actually putting into consideration what needs to be in a particular pot of soup or any meal at all that will be prepared for that hotel. So in recipe costing, you must be able to know what particular item or what it costs you to produce a particular item on your menu. So to do that, you must have gotten everything, recipe from both the tablespoon quantity of salt, the quantity of Maggi cubes. So no chef is preparing food based on individual preferences. So there's a recipe that is already developed, and then you must cost it, because if you don't cost your menu or your recipes, at the end of the day, you discover that you are selling a meal. What leads us back to what we were going to talk about that last time when we were talking about cost of sales. So you already have a very fine item on your menu, but then because you didn't cost it properly, what it is now costing you to produce that item is almost 70%. And then the total sale for that item is now 100. So you look at, after everything, your sales or your profit from that menu item is now somewhere around 30%. That means you are now operating anti-clockwise. Normally, you're supposed to be doing it 35 to 40%, but now because that menu item and the recipe weren't costed properly, you are now selling that item with 70% cost and 30% profit. So we'll move on to the next thing. You talked about vendor checks, then pricing and competition, which is very, 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 very important. So now, if your vendors aren't in check as a manager or a consultant, if your vendors aren't in checks, there will be no room for competition. So in doing vendor checks, it is very important that you analyze first the number of persons that can actually supply these items. Now, do you have more other people that can supply these quality of items at a fairer rate? Now, it doesn't mean that you're going to, because you are trying to optimize profit, you're not going to get into lower quality items. But then you must create a healthy competition for vendors. Because if there's no healthy competition for all of your vendors, there's something we learned earlier. Back in the days when we were trying to purchase, my elder brother used to tell me something. He says, once you start getting into the market and you develop somebody that you call your customer, that person is bound to cheat you. So what it means is that the person gains a confidence that you are never going to buy from somebody else. You are always going to buy from him or her. So even if he has a fake product, he can easily sell. But once somebody knows that he or she is easily very replaceable as a vendor, you see them trying to struggle to meet up both with quality and pricing. So vendor checks, pricing and competition is very, 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 very key. So for branded properties, most of the times, what we do is there is a season you say is call for vendors. When you call for vendors, you are saying, okay, we are looking at internet service. Let all the internet service providers that are available, let them submit their proposals. So we look at how many quantity of internet service can they actually provide for us at a particular time, and what is their pricing. You move away from there, you go to people supplying you protein. How many abattoirs in the market can you actually meet? How much are they supplying, at what kg, and all of that. So you create a healthy competition that allows every one of your suppliers to supply you quality products at very, very affordable rates. Then we get into receiving. I think you did a good job with FIFO and LIFO, which is in first in and first out, then last in and first out. Because like I mentioned the last time, we cannot talk about first in and first out without looking at last in and first out. Those things are basic management accounting processes, because there are items that are in your storage. They have stayed there for a long time. They need to leave. That is in first in and first out. There are also other items that are coming in, but because of their perishability, the fact that they will be easily perishable, now you need to send them out of your storage, either in your bars, whether they're in your kitchens and all that. You need to send them out quickly. Otherwise, the longer you keep them, because you're doing a first in and first out process, because of their perishability, you will lose revenue to that. Let's take, for instance, if you're doing something like these minor minerals like Coke, like Fantas, you know their lifespan does not last so long. Or you're looking at things like, anyways, those ones are not major hospitality products. If you say you want to go and eat gala sometimes does not last like up to a month. As you are buying gala today, it might be expiring tomorrow or the day after and all that. So, but for major hospitality items, like you look at Coke, you look at Fanta, some of those things are bound to expire in the next 2 to 3 months. So that's where the idea of last in and first out will apply. You cannot put in the first in and first out approach as it regards maybe a bottle of Coke and a bottle of wine, because a wine can be there for, let's say, 3 years or 4 years, and it has not run out of its quality. Some of the time, for some wines and spirits, the older the better, as we say. But then there are all those other items that they are coming in last, but they need to go out first because of their perishability. So we move on to another things like taking off menu items. Mr. Allen, I want to speak to what you mentioned earlier when you said in doing menu engineering, you must be able to look at some items that you can take out of your menu, and it's not a bad idea. And I'm re-echoing and buttressing exactly what you said. You know, so sometimes as hospitality managers, we get emotional and feel like, okay, this is something I created. We needed to have this item in the menu because one person came to request for it at a particular time. But in menu engineering, just like you mentioned, it is imperative for people to look at how much is it costing me to produce this particular item. Is it for the profitability of the organization, number one? And is it also in popular demand? Like, how long does it take before you're able to sell one item? I'll give a practical example. I had that similar situation on my property sometime last week or 2 weeks ago. Okay, so the cost of getting Atlantic salmon, for instance, for me to be able to sell it one portion very properly for hotel profitability, I will sell one portion of that Atlantic salmon for somewhere around 40 to 43,000. per portion. All right. So, but how many people will be willing to, and looking at the portioning system, you know, the portion is not that impressive that I myself, I can look at it and say, no, I'm not going to, if I were the person visiting a sister hotel or a neighboring hotel, and I'm asked to pay 43 or 45,000 for this portion of Atlantic salmon, I may not be interested in buying it. So, you know, if I keep this menu item, how long does it take? Now, I had to call my food and beverage team together. All right, you guys do room service and all that. How many times in a week, how many times in a month are we able to sell this item? Now the reviews started coming in. A lot of people are complaining about the portion size. A lot of people are also complaining about the price. But now, obviously, there is nothing I can do about both the portioning and the price, because I am trying to meet up with how much I am buying it in the market to be able to arrive at hotel profitability. Now, the best things I can do at that moment is what you earlier said. I'm bringing this example to buttress on what you said, Mr. Allen. So if I keep on with that product, it means that I will be selling an item. I will be keeping an item in the menu that it is either I'm not going to make profit for the organization, or if I insist on making profit, I'm not going to sell it. So in the long run, the best decisions at that point, there's nothing wrong with taking it out of your menu, Or if you are ever going to keep it inside of your menu, then you must develop alternative things like appetizer, things that are giveaways, things that you can that are accompaniment. There's what is called complementary service. So that means you have to give something for somebody to buy that particular thing. But again, in the end, it is reducing hotel profitability. So we've talked about, somebody mentioned something around costing for bar items. So again, I'll get back to what Mr. Kingsley said. To do these things, it will take us a bit by bit class session. If we are looking at the bar session, or we're looking at food and beverages session today, we look at it and see how we can cost for items even within the bars. Okay, let's look at let's say we are costing for bar items now. To be able to mitigate those series of losses and to declare whatever profitability is coming from that bar, there is something I talked about the last time about calibration. So in calibration, all of us will now be able to know that for a bottle of Cabernet Sauvignon, XYZ number of thoughts are involved in that red wine. Okay, if we are looking at a bottle of Omega tequila, these are the number of thoughts that are involved, and then they are calibrated. So everybody knows that at the end of the day, before this Omega tequila bottle runs empty, these are the total number of thoughts we shall have gained. And then times it by how many thoughts it is to arrive at how much we are selling our thought drinks. Now, this will be able to inform management whether it is more profitable to sell this drink in thoughts or it is more profitable to sell it in bottles. That's one way. And then another thing again that will help us is to be, after calibrating and knowing the number of thoughts per each drink. We are talking about thoughts now before we get into selling in whole as per bottles. So if it is a high cocktail producing bar, then you know that there are certain losses that are going to be coming from there. Of course, our mixologists and bartenders, with all due respect, there are people who will always tumble. So as the person is putting one thought or two thoughts for the guests, there are chances that he's going to tumble one thought or two thoughts for himself. So now where this comes up in pricing and the ability to be able to, cost our bars is in the fact that each of these items are calibrated and everybody knows what quantity of each item will be able to produce us another item. So let's say we are producing a Long Island today. We know the thoughts of gin we need. We know the thoughts of rum we need. We know the thoughts of liquor we need. We know what we need for that Long Island to be produced. So if I come to my bar tomorrow in the morning and I notice that we're able to produce 4 cups of Long Island iced tea, generally looking at my liquor, my gins, my vodka, I should know what quantity of it should have left my bar. That way, you're able to mitigate against petty losses. So I think that was when we were talking about recipe development for cocktails. And then you mentioned something again, that to prevent your bartenders from bringing in their own items. Just to chip in, there is something called bar under bar. Now, bar under bar speaks to the fact that somebody can develop a bar within your own bar. It means that your bartender can stay there. He has a relationship with your security operatives. So because both of them share a very fine relationship, somebody can be bringing in drinks for him. So he's selling a bar under your own bar. So it's called bar under bar. If you are not careful enough to be able to notice what item is in your bar but does not belong to you, you tend to overlook a couple of things. So how these things work is, at one point or the other, you will note, you come to your auditor is coming to check some things. Your bartenders are telling you is overage. Where did the overage emanate from? For God's sake, you bought for a crate of beer, which is 12 bottles. At what point did overage enter that you now have more bottles of beer than 12 in one crate? So you begin to discover that if you are checking very properly, bar under bar has started happening right within your property. How do you deal with this type of situation? Once you notice it, everything that is overage, you count it back into your stock. So you don't let people tell you that this is an overage. They are going to correct it, because at the end of the day, I'm seeing Mr. Kingsley laughing at the overages. Okay, so by the time you don't curb it, or you don't track it very easily, the next thing that will happen is that people are busy selling while your own products that you bought for the property to sell are there looking at you. So that's why you have a bar that has drinks for 2 years, 3 years, 5 months, 6 months ago. Nobody has sold them, but then people are making sales. You keep seeing people coming to your property, they are drinking, they are eating, but then you look for money, you are not seeing money. You're still seeing the items inside of your shelves, they are still intact. Your auditor comes in the morning, he checks everything is complete, but bar under bar is happening right within your premises. So these are things we must be checking for. Then I move on to the next thing I needed to touch again, which is manpower planning. I now remember when Mr. Allen talked about the issue of planning to hire people, and then the ability to cross-train. So manpower planning is very important, and cross-exposure as well. So the ability to be able to train somebody from this department to be able to function in another department is not just for the profitability of the organization, and this is where human resource comes in. How many times in a year do you find time to train your employees? Because if you don't train them enough, they don't understand the importance of these trainings and cross-exposure. Now, what cross-exposure will do is that it profits both the organization and the individual that is undergoing this cross-exposure training. Because today or tomorrow, somebody is in human resource, but he does not understand how to interpret accounting and financial figures. Next tomorrow, he's now made an operations manager, so he doesn't have a basic idea, because he was looking at the idea of finance and accounting like an abstract thing that does not concern him at all, or his job role and his responsibility. So at one point now, he's now an operations manager who is now saddled the responsibility of managing what the organization is buying for profitability and all that. You see him appearing very blank. This is most of the cases we have with modern day managers. So one person sticks to one area and does not have the ability. At senior management level, we can be talking about how it affects human resource or administration, and then accounts and financing. But at lower management level or at lower staffing level, you now begin to discover that somebody who was a waitress could speak very fluently, could interface with guests and customers, but did not at any point try to look at what it means to be a receptionist. So every time you now have a shortage in manpower in the reception, you can't even move one person from one department to another. But what cross-exposure does is that the fact that you are training all your employees to be able to interchange at one point or the other to meet a need whenever there is a vacancy, or wherever there is a gap, wherever there is a glitch. There is somebody, we now have people, maybe for stealing or whatever it is, you now relieve maybe 2-3 waitresses. But you still have a few people who are either your stewards, or they are your receptionists, or they are your porters, they are your housekeepers, who you have been training well over time using the cross-exposure approach. They can hold brief for the company, and it is to their own advantage. That's why I say it benefits both the company and the individual, because whether they leave that company and go to another one, they have the ability to be able to fit into jobs very easily. Okay, we'll move on to another thing. reorder level. Mr. Allen, you did a good job talking about reorder level because it has its cost. I just want to talk about the cost implications of a reorder level. You know, if a reorder level has a certain place where you call red flags. So if let's say the portion of protein I need to have in the kitchen is 10 to become my reorder. So once it hits 10, I am bound to restock my proteins. Now, if you don't maintain that pace, you will be trapped into rush buying. Rush buying is now that at one point or the other, because people are now asking for something that is not available, you are now buying that thing at a more expensive rate out of desperation. So on a Sunday now, you say you need let's say ketchup. Now you can't find it anywhere close. Your supplier is not supplying on Sundays, and because you couldn't maintain a reorder level, that thing is finished from stock by Friday. So now on Sunday, you need it for you to be able to produce the items you have on your menu. You now have to buy it at another store, which is not your original supplier. That person might be selling it at a more costly rate. Even if he's not selling it at a more costly rate, suppliers have an ability to punish you. I've been giving you proposals for a long time. You don't want to buy from me. Today now is a rush buy. It's an opportunity for me to cash out from you. So an item that normally you would have bought for 1,000 naira, you're now buying it for like 3,000 because you must buy to be able to meet what guest demands. Let's look at another thing you talked about that I need to buttress. We talked about end of month stock taking. Stock taking is another very tedious place that most hotel managers, departmental managers will always run away from. But if you don't do stock taking, I bet you are on a faulty process. In fact, what are you even going to do without stock taking? Without stock taking, you cannot even determine the cost of goods sold, which is your COGS. You can't, and if you can't determine the cost of your goods sold, there is no way you too can be able to determine cost of sales, because it is from cost of goods sold that you will be able to determine cost of sales. It is from cost of sales that you'll be able to determine the profitability of the company through income statement, through management accounts and all that. So by end of month stock taking, you'll be able to know what you're bringing into a new month, what you were able to close in a new month, what you were able to buy within the course of 1 month. So it is in this stock taking that you are able to value your products that you have within your organization. Let me just touch the very, very last thing. You talked about owners reporting. Now, without owners reporting, it is a zero management, because like it means you are just running the property and nobody's talking about what was made, what was lost, and all that. Now, a very sensitive part of owners reporting is in the fact that if you are not reporting to the owner in figures and all that and speaking to facts, one morning an owner can decide and say you are not working in this property, and you will have nothing on your table to be able to speak up for you. But it is in the frequent reports that you are able to generate that speaks to the fact that, okay, sir, in the course of last month, these decisions, the ones we took, instead of us to grant this waiver for year, we didn't grant them. So these companies stopped patronizing us because of XYZ policy that we developed. Now he's able to know that both his actions and inactions are directly or indirectly affecting the profitability of the organization. That can only come with facts and figures and proper ownership reporting. If you don't do that, at the end of the day, when the hotel begins to either drop in profitability, the burden of proving why that thing is happening will fall back to you. And it will be too late for you to begin to apportion blames, because that time you will be looking for who said what, who did what, why it is happening. You start to look for, just like what Mr. Allen mentioned, it will now become an emotional something. You are saying it's because it's Hamatan. You are saying it's because people are not around. You are saying it's because these guests that used to come to us, his family was sick. He took them to the UK. You are talking to emotions. You are no longer talking to facts. But when you are speaking to facts and figures, it now comes with ownership reporting, where every action and inaction, both from your employees, yourself, your management team, your directors, your owners, whatever decision that they are taking per time, how it affects the business, both positively and negatively. Mr. Allen, I think I shouldn't take too much of time. Let's allow also our people to be able to give us their reviews or ask particular questions, then we can come in. Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Thomas. I think what we'll do is, like we have all said, we've all agreed. This particular training will definitely have little sisters and brothers. We'll break it down. We'll just see how far we can go. This cohort is supposed to take 4 weeks. This is our second week. We have 2 weeks left. Maybe we'll dedicate the last week to breaking down these things, but we'll use this next week to address other topics. But we'll use maybe the last week to just break it down for the purpose and sake of those that still need to catch up. Please, like we had agreed, all your questions, please drop all your questions on the group. Send it to the WhatsApp group. We would try to answer them because we know that this particular class is very extensive. So we'll try to answer them. But like we said, everything we said during the course of this training is something you should be able to put into practice and see how to start ensuring that, yes, because if you don't start practicing this thing, or if you don't upgrade in your practice of these things that we just shared, you stay where you are. Others will not respect you. Your fellow colleagues will not respect you because you don't understand numbers. So I hope and I believe that every one of us will start putting these things into practice, get close to people that you know can interpret these things better for you. On the WhatsApp group, Mr. Kingsley is a financial person. Thomas understands financial processes very well. So whatever you are not very familiar with, please drop it on the group. We'll find a way to definitely answer. Drop your questions and whatever. Thank you so much. I know Sundays are not actually easy. So for the remaining 2 weeks, we'll maintain Thursdays, but on the group we'll drop we will definitely drop suggestions of another day within the week, because I know most of you are managing lounges and your facilities are poolside, so Sundays are like your peak. So we will do that just to be sure that we can accommodate the few people that are very serious about this. And like I also said, we will try to remove people that are not serious. This is a free training, and we expected that for anybody that wants to learn, to sacrifice, if the only thing you can do is time, sacrifice time and learn. So I would also try to be very strict what I had said. But thank you for those of you that made out time. Stay true to the end of this class. Thank you, and I wish you all and a wonderful Sunday evening. Please remember to drop your reactions, feedback, questions on the WhatsApp. We'll do well to answer. Don't worry, this particular assessment will not come the way to come. Yeah, you will see the way the assessment will come. Thank you so much, guys. Please drop your reviews. Where you need extra touch, please drop it on the group. And do have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. God bless you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. It was an evening worthwhile. Thank you.